Chapter 688. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Kill Yourself. Have the two of you forgotten the original three-party agreement? A beautiful middle-aged woman yelled. She was the Empress, a level 9 king. Mad Sovereign with a red-haired old man, while the last of the three overlords, War Emperor, was a white-haired old man. Zhan Huang and Kuang Zun's teams had surrounded the Empress. Empress, we've been fighting for more than a decade now. You've always been neutral, but you've done a lot of shady things, haven't you? Mad Sovereign said. What do you mean? The Empress narrowed her eyes. I thought it was War Emperor who sent the assassins in my territory. I didn't expect it to be you, Mad Sovereign said coldly. You don't suspect War Emperor, but you suspect me? The Empress's expression darkened. At this moment, the Battle Emperor added, Empress, I, the Battle Emperor, am a man of my word. At the same time, I never hide anything. I'll admit it if it was me. I've been fighting with Mad Sovereign for more than a decade, so he knows what kind of person I am. But this time, you sent people to kill Mad Sovereign's grandson. Are you trying to pin the blame on me? What? The Empress's expression froze. Mad Sovereign's son was dead? She hadn't heard about this. Impossible. I didn't give such an order. The Empress shouted. She knew there was no point in hiding it now. The assassins she sent to Mad Sovereign's territory were indeed her people. Not only that, she had also sent people to War Emperor's territory. But she had never given the order to kill Mad Sovereign's grandson. You were neutral, so we didn't care. But now that your people kill my grandson, I have to avenge him. Mad Sovereign looked at the Empress coldly. I never gave such an order. The Empress quibbled. She really hadn't. Her people must have bumped into Mad Sovereign's grandson and killed him. I remember you have a housekeeper called by Xianxia, right? War Emperor's eyes flashed. That's her. She killed Mad Sovereign's grandson. At the same time, she was killed by Mad Sovereign. Boom. This news was a heavy blow to the Empress. Bai Xianxia was one of the people she trusted the most. Although she was her housekeeper, she was raised by Bai Xianxia. In the Empress's heart, Bai Xianxia was her mother. Who would have thought that she would die at the hands of Sovereign Kuang? She killed my grandson and even pretended to be a level 7 king to destroy many of the islands under my control. If I hadn't coincidentally bumped into her, I wouldn't have been able to capture her. Kuang Zun glanced at Zhan Huang and said, Empress, I'll tell you another secret. Zhan Huang is my older brother. My grandson calls him Grandpa. We've been fighting each other for decades because we don't like each other. We've never killed our own family. Boom. The Empress's head buzzed again. The Battle Emperor was Kuang Zun's brother? This was something she had never known before. Not only that, but even the experts under Mad Sovereign and Battle Emperor didn't know either. Not to mention them, even their grandchildren might not be fully aware of this secret. If you were just neutral, we would have turned a blind eye. But since you're looking for trouble, don't blame us for being merciless. Zhan Huang looked at the Empress and said coldly, Empress, kill yourself. Kill herself. Asking a superior to commit suicide was not an easy thing to do, unless this superior had already been utterly defeated. The Empress had asked her subordinates to disguise themselves and sneak into Zhan Huang and Kuang Zun's territory to increase their hatred. However, he had accidentally killed the grandson of the Mad Sovereign and even lost one of his closest relatives. Left with no choice, Kuang Zun and Zhan Huang could only break their agreement and target the Empress. Disheartened, the Empress looked around. This time, both Zhan Huang and Kuang Zun had brought more people than her. If they joined forces, she had no chance of winning. If she killed herself, she wouldn't have to fight, and her subordinates wouldn't have died. But she couldn't accept it. Her wish was to unite the chaotic astral ocean like the Wind Thunder Emperor had 1,000 years ago. Unfortunately, she wouldn't be able to see that happen. Understand. The Empress unsheathed her weapon. Captain! The experts behind the Empress hurriedly shouted. The Empress's pirates were the weakest of the three overlords. She was the only one who was a level 9 king. Kuang Zun's pirates had 2 other level 9 kings. Zhan Huang was slightly weaker, so there were only 2 of them. As long as the Empress died, the situation in the chaotic astral ocean would change. It could be divided, or it could be united. After all, Zhan Huang and Kuang Zun were brothers. It wasn't impossible for them to unite the chaotic astral ocean. Kill yourself. It's time for the chaotic astral ocean to be peaceful. Zhan Huang looked at the Empress. However, at this moment, two figures suddenly flew over from the horizon. Empress! Guan Yulan rushed to the Empress's side. The Empress looked at her and shook her head. Yulan, I'm sorry. The Empress's pirates. I'm afraid. The winner takes all. Don't worry. As long as you die, we won't make things difficult for your people, Zhan Huang added. The Empress nodded. She was ready. However, right at this moment, Yi Xian, who was not far away, knew he was about to come out. Although this had nothing to do with him, the Empress had taken care of Guan Yulan for 7 years. Guan Yulan had no parents since she was young, so Yi Xian didn't want her to die. Since the Empress wanted to unite the chaotic astral ocean, Yi Xian would lend her a hand. After all, Guan Yulan would be the Empress in the future. Kuang Zun. Yi Xian shouted and rushed over. Kuang Zun was stunned. When he saw Yi Xian's face, he was even more surprised. It's you? Why are you here? Kuang Zun asked in shock. Yi Xian's appearance made the Empress's hand freeze. He didn't beat around the bush and said directly, Kuang Zun, Zhan Huang, I'm giving you a chance. If you retreat now, you can save your lives. Otherwise, your pirates will be removed from the chaotic astral ocean in the future. Kuang Zun was shocked when he heard this. What did you say? An image suddenly appeared in his mind. It was the image of Mysterious Mountain making a move. When Yi Xian left the Kuang Zun pirates, he was only a level 4 king. Now that 2 months had passed, he was at most a level 5 king. Kuang Zun thought that Yi Xian had asked Mysterious Mountain to make a move. Chapter 689. Translator, Transin Editor, Transin challenging an overlord of course. Yi Xian didn't want them to leave. He wanted to kill them all, so he said regretfully, Don't worry, my teacher won't do anything. Now, I challenge you. Mad Sovereign, War Emperor, do you accept? This sentence frightened the surrounding people. A young man dared to challenge Mad Sovereign and War Emperor at the same time. Challenging 2 kings at the same time? Was he looking for death? Second brother, who is his teacher? War Emperor asked in surprise. He could see that Mad Sovereign knew Yi Xian. Mysterious Mountain Man, Mad Sovereign said gloomily. News of a Void God Realm Great Emperor appearing in Mad Sovereign's territory quickly reached War Emperor's ears. When the Battle Emperor heard the truth, his face turned pale. The Nihility God Realm Great Emperor was a powerful expert that could easily kill all of them. As for Yi Xian, he was actually the disciple of that Nihility God Realm Great Emperor. Don't worry, I'm just an in-name disciple. My teacher won't ask if I live or die. This time, Yi Xian directly revealed that he was an in-name disciple. That day in the Kuang Zun pirates, he said that he was Mountain Master Xian Zhong's disciple, but he didn't say that he was an in-name disciple. After Kuang Zun saw the gravity space, he naturally thought that Yi Xian was Mountain Master Xian Zhong's personal disciple. But today, Yi Xian was 100 times stronger than before. There was no need to hide it. In-name disciple, Mad Sovereign's expression changed again. If he knew Yi Xian was only an in-name disciple, why would he refuse? So he's just an in-name disciple. How dare he challenge me and second brother? Zhang Yinwei, go and fight him. War Emperor snorted. After hearing about Mysterious Mountain Man, War Emperor didn't dare underestimate Yi Xian. Although he was only an in-name disciple, wasn't Yi Yin stronger than Mad Sovereign? Therefore, one couldn't judge a book by its cover, nor could one judge a book by its cover. Hearing this, the muscular man behind the Battle Emperor stepped forward. He was an 8th grade king, and his strength was not to be underestimated. In any case, today's matter had already been decided. Yi Xian's appearance was just a small interlude. Very quickly, Yi Xian stepped into the air and walked out, brandishing a green longsword in his hand. Wind Dragon Slash. The name of this green longsword was the same as a martial art he had learned before. To deal with a level 8 king, he didn't need to use the Bahuang sword at all. He didn't even need to raise his hand. The reason why he took out the Wind Dragon Slash was to show off. This weapon, All the experts present raised their eyebrows, including Kuang Zun, Battle Emperor, and the Empress. The Wind Dragon / of the Wind Thunder Grand Emperor? Someone exclaimed. The Wind Thunder Supreme Emperor was an all-powerful figure 1,000 years ago. At that time, he unified the chaotic astral ocean. However, because his lifespan was nearing its end, after he disappeared, the chaotic astral ocean was once again divided. However, there were still many statues of him in the chaotic astral ocean. As his main weapon, the Wind Dragon / was naturally familiar to the world. It's just a replica. It's only a middle-grade, ethereal god weapon. Someone immediately snorted disdainfully. Everyone had seen many replica weapons like this, so it didn't mean anything. However, how would they know that the Wind Dragon / in Yi Xian's hand was the Wind Thunder Supreme Emperor's main weapon, the template of all the replicas? Go to hell, kid. The snort just now was from the muscular man. He directly slashed a flaming sword chi at Yi Xian. With the Wind Dragon / in his hand, Yi Xian casually slashed out an attack. Wind Cloud / Whoosh! This slash easily broke through the flaming sword chi and cut the muscular man in half. It was so fast that only a few people present could react. When the muscular man's body fell from the sky and his interspatial ring flew toward Yi Xian, the people present finally reacted. This is the Wind Thunder Supreme Emperor's Wind Cloud / Gosh, the Wind Dragon / can be replicated, but I've never heard of anyone who could create a martial arts technique similar to the Wind Cloud / Could it be that he found the Wind Thunder Supreme Emperor's inheritance? The people around were shocked. The War Emperor, Kuang Zun, and the Empress also widened their eyes. They felt that this slash was so terrifying that even they might not be able to withstand it. Just as everyone was wondering, Yi Xian laughed loudly. That's right. I've already obtained the Wind Thunder Supreme Emperor's inheritance. The Wind Dragon / and the Wind Cloud / were also obtained from the Wind Thunder Palace. When his words fell into everyone's ears, everyone's body trembled violently. The Wind Thunder Palace really existed? The world had been searching for thousands of years, but they couldn't find the legendary Wind Thunder Supreme Emperor. Therefore, many people guessed that the Wind Thunder Supreme Emperor might have left behind a lie. There was no Wind Thunder Palace, nor was there any Wind Thunder Supreme Emperor. The Wind Thunder Supreme Emperor was a selfish person who wouldn't pass on what he had learned in his life. They didn't expect it to be true. War Emperor Kuang Zun, come out and fight me, Yi Xian shouted. He had completely comprehended the Wind profound meaning. Even though he was only a level 7 king, he could easily kill a level 8 king. In the battle just now, he didn't even use his domain. He killed a level 8 king with a casual slash. If he used his domain, Kuang Zun and War Emperor would be nothing. War Emperor and Kuang Zun looked gloomy. Before they could say anything, Yi Xian said, "Oh, the level 9 kings of your 2 pirate groups should come out as well." This time, apart from Crazy Sovereign and Battle Emperor, there were a total of 3 9th level kings from both sides, which meant that all of them had come. Now, Yi Xian didn't only want to challenge Kuang Zun and War Emperor, but also the 3 level 9 kings. Wasn't this a little too crazy? Only a Void God Realm Emperor could challenge 5 level 9 kings at the same time. Wasn't Yi Xian courting death? Hearing this, even Guan Yulan was shocked. She wanted to stop Yi Xian, but when she saw the confident smile on his face, she held herself back. She had seen Yi Xian's strength before. She didn't have any ability to resist Yi Xian. One had to know that her strength was already comparable to a level 9 king. Yi Xian had Wind Xianxia, Wind Acceleration, and 2 space profound meanings. His speed was unmatched. Thinking of this, Guan Yulan had great confidence in Yi Xian. You don't know your place. War Emperor was furious. Challenging him was one thing, but now, the Mad Sovereign had to be added into the mix. Now, the Mad Sovereign wanted to challenge all 5 level 9 kings, including him. This was an absolute humiliation. Chapter 690. Translator, Exodus Tales Editor. Exodus Tales: The War Emperor was dead. All right, since you want to die, I'll grant you your wish. The Battle Emperor flew out, accompanied by another level 9 king. Huangzun frowned as well. Then he walked out, followed by the 2 kings. 5 level 9 kings had gathered. Among the 5 of them, Crazy Sovereign and the War Emperor were the strongest, although the other 3 were just level 9 kings. Only an empty God Realm Emperor would be able to kill them. They did not believe that Yixian was an empty God Realm Emperor. Very good. Yixian nodded in satisfaction when he saw the 5 of them. There were a total of 6 level 9 kings in the chaotic astral ocean. Excluding the Empress, there were only 5 of them left. In order to unify the chaotic astral ocean, Crazy Sovereign and the War Emperor had to die. Otherwise, how could the Empress keep the chaotic astral ocean in check? Therefore, these 5 people became people that Yixian had to kill and also became his stepping stones. Yixian had already made a plan. After unifying the chaotic astral ocean and assisting Guan Yulan in becoming the Overlord, he would open up a route for the Warlord Palace and kill his way back to the eastern mainland to take revenge on Jiang Tianjin and Jiang Wenyue. Yixian flew into the distance. Crazy Sovereign and the others felt that it was unnecessary. After all, if the 5 of them worked together, they would be able to kill Yixian in an instant. Yixian suddenly switched the Wind Dragon Slash to his left hand and took out the Bahuang sword. This was his first time facing 5 level 9 kings. He did not dare to be reckless and had to be cautious. Kid, hand over the Wind Thunder Emperor's inheritance, and I will spare your life, the War Emperor said to Yixian. The Wind Thunder Emperor's inheritance would definitely be of the wind and lightning attributes. The War Emperor's son was of the wind attribute and could use it. If you want the Wind Thunder Emperor's inheritance, come and get it yourself. Yixian smiled. He knew that he would not rest until he was dead. Even if he had the backing of Mysterious Mountain Man, the War Emperor and the others would not show him mercy if he was not strong enough. Very good. You have a backbone. Since that's the case, then don't blame me. The War Emperor yelled and immediately expanded his territory. At the same time, he threw out dozens of virtual god weapons and attacked Yixian. The 2 of them were 10,000 meters apart, and their domains had already enveloped Yixian. On the other hand, Yixian's domain also enveloped the 5 of them. Battle Emperor was of the metal element, Mad Sovereign was of the fire element, and the other 3 were of the metal, fire, and water elements respectively. Although there were 2 elements that countered him, Yixian had more than just the earth element. Swish! Yixian swiftly flew over. The pair of green wings on his back were extremely dazzling. The 100% completion high-grade void god martial art, Wind Cleaver, contained the wind acceleration profound meaning, the gravity space's repulsive force acceleration, and the wind space's wind acceleration. This allowed Yixian, who was only a level 7 king, to surpass even the Battle Emperor and the Mad Supremacy. What? Seeing Yixian go all out, the Battle Emperor and the others finally understood what kind of person they had provoked. A level 7 king's speed actually surpassed them, who were level 9 kings. He was a genius, no, a monster. The wealth of a level 9 king was very tempting to Yixian, but he also knew that an elite like the Battle Emperor wouldn't put everything in his yin and yang ring. They would find a place to hide most of their belongings. However, as long as he killed the 5 of them, he would at least be able to break through to become a level 8 king. Yixian's main target was the Battle Emperor. The distance of 1,000 meters was covered in a flash. Yixian took advantage of the fact that the 5 of them were stunned to appear in front of the Battle Emperor. Wind space, gravity space. In the next instant, Yixian used the dual space to restrict the Battle Emperor. The Battle Emperor was already a pinnacle king, but the dual space had a huge restriction on him. Although he could move, his speed was only 60% of what it was before. Die. Star-shattering sword. This battle was very important. Yixian arrived in front of the Battle Emperor before thrusting out his star-shattering sword. The Battle Emperor really wanted to dodge, but his speed was only 60% of what it was before. Moreover, Yixian was so fast that he couldn't react. He couldn't dodge this attack. Metal defense. The Battle Emperor was covered in a layer of golden armor. However, The cold light still entered his body. Kacha! The Battle Emperor's golden armor began to shatter as blood poured out. The Battle Emperor, one of the 3 overlords of the chaotic astral ocean, was dead. Yi Xian had instantly killed him. Wild Sovereign and the others were stunned. They stared blankly at the Battle Emperor's body, which had been shattered into countless pieces, falling from the sky. At this moment, the yin and yang ring had already fallen into Yi Xian's hands. F***CK. The Battle Emperor is so stingy. Yi Xian was helpless. Indeed, the stronger one was the more cautious one was. The amount of treasures in the Battle Emperor's yin and yang ring was pitifully small. However, it was still a lot more than a level 8 king. I just need to kill 1 or 2 more, and I'll break through. Yi Xian's eyes widened. He had recovered some of his qi, enough for him to use the Windfall Cleaver. The star-shattering sword had used up all of his qi. He had to be more cautious while his qi recovered. He had to retreat first. Big brother. When Yi Xian retreated 1,000 meters away, Kuang Zun finally reacted. The Battle Emperor who had just died was Wild Sovereign's big brother. Kill him. Wild Sovereign roared and charged at Yi Xian. The other 3 quickly followed, determined to cut Yi Xian into 1,000 pieces. At this time, the people of the 3 pirate groups were already dumbfounded. The Battle Emperor was the strongest of the 3 overlords. He had reached the peak and was only 1 step away from becoming a void god, Great Emperor. How could someone like that be killed by Yi Xian? Most importantly, the Battle Emperor was of the metal attribute. Even Wild Sovereign wouldn't have been able to break through his defense so easily. However, he had indeed died just like that. Moreover, his death was extremely tragic. Who is he? The Empress murmured. Guan Yulan didn't answer. She silently watched Yi Xian being chased by Wild Sovereign and the other 3. She finally understood why Yi Xian had challenged 5 level 9 kings at the same time. Could it be that he was telling the truth? Yi Xian, who was being chased by Kuang Zun's group of 4, dodged while recovering his true energy. At this moment, he had already recovered 1/3 of his true qi. This was enough for him to use the sword-shattering stars again and kill a 9th grade king. However, the star-shattering sword was his strongest attack, and no one could withstand it. If he only used this move, wouldn't the other profound meanings he had comprehended become mere decorations? Ha, you 5 enjoy this move. Yi Xian laughed. Suddenly, he ingeniously dodged the attacks and gathered the 4 together. Then, he trapped them in a dual space. The 4's speed dropped drastically, and their expressions changed. In the next moment, the dual space was filled with howling winds. Chapter 691. Wind Element Profound Death Storm. Yi Xian's eyes flashed as countless wind blades appeared. Not only that, but the Bahuang sword had also been shattered. With all sorts of enhancements, it flew in. Death Storm, 10,000 lightning, and raging flames incinerate the heavens. These 3 profound were extremely powerful. Although Yi Xian was only a level 7 king, using Death Storm in the dual space was much more threatening. Wild Reverend and the other 3's faces sank. They used all their abilities to block, but their speed was greatly reduced. They could only defend. However, one shouldn't forget that the wind blades weren't the only ones attacking. There were also 8 other blades. Throbbing pulse of the earth, 32 layers. Pung, 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 pung. The blades continuously broke through the defenses of the 4. By the time the death storm stopped, 2 figures had already fallen from the sky. Their interspatial rings flew towards Yi Xian. Of the 4, only Wild Reverend and the other metal-attributed level 9 king had survived. It's still not powerful enough. Yi Xian grinned as he caught the 2 interspatial rings. It was indeed not powerful enough before, but now it was enough. Ding! Host has broken through. Host is now a level 8 king. Now, Yi Xian could be considered a true unrivaled king. As a level 7 king, he was able to challenge 5 level 9 kings by himself and even kill 3 of them. Now that he was a level 8 king, could Wild Reverend and the other level 9 king still survive? Wild Reverend felt Yi Xian's domain suddenly expand. His face was ashen as he stood there motionless. Winner takes all. Wild Sovereign calmly spat out these words. Good, you're a formidable character. I'll fulfill your wish. Yi Xian's eyes flashed as a wind blade flew towards Wild Reverend, cutting his head off. 4 of the 5 level 9 kings were already dead. The last metal-attributed level 9 king suddenly cowered. He hurriedly said, spare me. The stronger one was, the more one feared death. He'd worked so hard to become a level 9 king. He wasn't willing to die like this. Compared his life, what was dignity? I'm sorry. If you don't die, I won't be at ease. Yi Xian finished speaking calmly. In the next instant, this level 9 king tier was killed by his sword shattering the stars. The destructive power of a 9th grade king was enormous. He couldn't leave such a star in the chaotic astral ocean. Therefore, this person had to die. All 5 9th grade kings had fallen. The battle was over. Huff, huff, as expected, he didn't manage to break through to the 9th grade. Yi Xian breathed a sigh of relief. He was quite satisfied with his strength. After all, this was not his full combat strength. He felt like he could deal with dozens of battle emperors and mad sovereigns at the same time. 5 9th grade kings were really nothing much. Seeing the 5 kings fall one after another at the hands of Yi Xian, the 3 pirate groups were so shocked that they were prostrating themselves on the ground. At this time, the 3 camps were completely silent. Yi Xian glanced into the distance and quickly flew over. Now that the Battle Emperor and the Mad Celestial are dead, those who submit will be spared. Yi Xian shouted to the experts of the War Emperor pirates and the Guangzhou pirates. After a second of silence, they shouted in unison, "We submit." Such a loud and clear voice made Yi Xian feel relieved, as if a huge rock had been lifted from his heart. He was now the strongest person in the chaotic astral ocean. If he wanted to, he could definitely unify the chaotic astral ocean. Of course, this didn't include Mysterious Mountain Man. However, he didn't want to be a pirate leader. His goal wasn't as simple as becoming a Void God Realm King. After that, his gaze landed on the Empress. His gaze caused the Empress to tremble all over. "Don't worry, I won't attack you," Yi Xian said. If he wanted to, none of the people present would be able to escape his pursuit. However, Yi Xian wouldn't attack the Empress because she was related to Guan Yulan. Moreover, Guan Yulan still needed to ask if she could recover her memories. "Now, I want to make a deal with you." Yi Xian suddenly glanced at Guan Yulan and said, "Yulan and I are friends. I knew her before you brought her to the chaotic astral ocean. As long as you recover her memories, you will be the only overlord of the chaotic astral ocean." The Empress was stunned. Yi Xian was also from the Tianshui continent. How was this possible? You? The Empress was so shocked that she couldn't speak. You must want to unify the chaotic astral ocean, right? Didn't you find Yulan because you want to train her to become a Void God Realm Great Emperor and unify the chaotic astral ocean? Yi Xian asked. Indeed, that was what the Empress wanted. As long as she could train a Void God Realm Great Emperor, she could unify the chaotic astral ocean. However, there was no need to wait until then. Okay, the Empress immediately agreed. The best way to cultivate the Heartless Tao was to erase one's memories and start from scratch. In fact, there were many girls like Guan Yulan, but their talents were much worse than Guan Yulan's. That was why the Empress wanted to train Guan Yulan as her successor. Now, with this relationship with Yi Xian, the Empress could unify the chaotic astral ocean and fulfill her wish. Then, Guan Yulan wouldn't need to cultivate the Heartless Tao anymore. As soon as the Empress finished speaking, she put her hand on Guan Yulan's head. Guan Yulan groaned in pain and blinked. When she opened her eyes again, there was a change in her eyes. Yi Xian. Guan Yulan looked at the white figure in front of her and whispered softly. Finally recovered. Yi Xian was overjoyed. As expected, his memories were not erased. Instead, they were sealed. Now it was finally unlocked. Yi Xian. After recovering her memories, Guan Yulan threw herself into Yi Xian's arms. 7 years. 7 years had passed since that day. Yi Xian hugged Guan Yulan tightly and patted her back. These 7 years, he had been thinking about Guan Yulan, but he couldn't do anything about it. Although he already had a fiancée, in this world, even an ordinary warrior could have several wives. Zhan Huang and Kuang Zun both had 5 or 6 wives. They all wanted their families to be strong, so 2 wives was nothing. At this time, the Empress and the others finally understood why Yi Xian wanted to help. The Empress felt very lucky. 7 years ago, she took Guan Yulan away from Yi Xian, but Yi Xian didn't take her life. He was already very kind. Yulan, from now on, you are the Empress. The beautiful woman said to Guan Yulan's back. Guan Yulan trembled and turned around. Mother, you... Chapter 692. Then, she glanced at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was only a grade 7 king before, but he was able to kill 3 grade 9 kings. Now that he was a grade 8 king, he was invincible under the great emperor level. With such talent, he could definitely break through to the void spirit realm. If he married Guan Yulan, wouldn't she be Yi Xian's mother-in-law? Having a son-in-law in the void spirit realm was even more impressive than unifying the chaotic astral ocean. Hearing her words, the experts of the 3 pirate groups all knelt down and said in unison, Greetings, Empress. Empress Guan Yulan. After the fall of Kuang Zun and Zhan Huang, the Empress became the only overlord of the chaotic astral ocean. However, the current Empress was a different person from before. Guan Yulan inherited the position of Empress and became the Empress of the chaotic astral ocean. The territories of Kuang Zun and Zhan Huang were merged with the Empress's territory. Yi Xian didn't expect that the chaotic astral ocean, which had been in chaos for thousands of years, would be unified one day. Moreover, it was through his hands. Now that Guan Yulan was the Empress, there were no more obstacles to the Battle King Palace's route. At that moment, Yi Xian prepared to tell Song Sui Jing and the others about this. When they first came to the Blood Rock continent, Song Sui Jing said that she agreed that Yi Xian could have other women, but not too many. Therefore, she didn't have any objections. After all, there were 2 brothers in the Great Song Dynasty and 1 in the Deep Sea Dragon Palace. Now, Lan Yu was also taken by him. There were 4 in total. Yi Xian, including her, only had 2. Where could they find such a loyal man? However, when Yi Xian brought Guan Yulan to Shuntian Island, Lan Yu told him a piece of news. The heart of the great emperor had appeared. No, it should be said that it had disappeared. Shuntian City. What happened? Yi Xian couldn't help but ask. Previously, the 3 king palaces combined the 3 maps of the heart of the great emperor and guessed the location of the great emperor's death. This location originally belonged to the eastern continent, but now it belonged to the great wilderness. The 3 king palaces have already come to an agreement to find the great emperor's corpse and study it together, Lan Yu replied. And then? Yi Xian frowned. Then, the great emperor's corpse was taken away by a mysterious expert. Palace Master Situ immediately chased after him, but there has been no news, the great elder, Xianxia, replied. A mysterious expert. Yi Xian raised an eyebrow and said, Could this mysterious expert be from the Yao clan? I was there at that time. That mysterious expert was very powerful. He was at least a level 6 king. Most importantly, there was still a trace of the great emperor's will left behind in the great emperor's corpse. Sigh, we were too careless. Xianxia sighed. The will of the great emperor? Yi Xian raised an eyebrow in confusion. Lan Yu, who was at the side, hurriedly said, The demonic beast race emperor's corpse still contains the remnant will of the demonic beast race emperor. If an ordinary king were to obtain it, he would be able to comprehend it quickly. He might even be able to break through to the void god realm, emperor realm. What? He directly broke through to the void god realm great emperor? Yi Xian was shocked. If that mysterious expert was from the Yao clan, then wouldn't the Yao clan have another void god realm great emperor? We just don't know who that mysterious expert is. Palace Master Situ has gone out to investigate, but there has been no news, Xianxia added. Then I'll go too. I've already broken through to level 8 king realm. My strength isn't any weaker than Palace Master Situ's. Yi Xian took the initiative to resign. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's expression changed. In just a few months, Yi Xian had broken through to level 8 king realm. Yi Xian pulled Guan Yulan over and said, "Now that I've killed Kuang Zun and Zhan Huang, she's the new Great Empress. The chaotic astral ocean can be considered unified. Great Elder, you can go and choose a route." Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Kuang Zun and Zhan Huang, 2 level 9 kings, were killed by Yi Xian. This young lady, who was only 25 years old, was the new Great Empress? Everyone's minds went blank. They couldn't figure out what had happened in the past few months. After Yi Xian finished speaking, he pulled Song Suijing over and whispered a few words to her. Song Suijing had also broken through to level 4 king realm, but she was still far from Guan Yulan. Yi Xian's current goal was to nurture Song Suijing into a great empress and rule the chaotic astral ocean together with Guan Yulan. Song Suijing was stunned when she heard Yi Xian's whisper. She nodded silently. She had heard about Guan Yulan from Yi Xian a long time ago. She didn't expect the great empress in front of her to be Guan Yulan. "Yulan, take care of things here. I'll go back to the eastern continent to take a look," Yi Xian said to Guan Yulan. "Okay." Guan Yulan nodded. She was quite capable. When Yi Xian came to the chaotic astral ocean again, she would be able to take care of everything and open up a path. After that, Yi Xian directly left Shuntian Island and flew towards the eastern continent. It had been a few months since he came to the chaotic astral ocean. When he came, he was only a level 3 king. When he left, he was already a level 8 king. However, his strength was invincible among the Void God Realm kings. Mysterious expert, Great Emperor's will. I'm already a level 8 king. If I break through again, I'll be a level 9 king. When that time comes, I don't know what I'll need to become a Great Emperor. Maybe it'll be this Great Emperor's will. Yi Xian thought to himself as he hurried on his way. He sped up to the extreme and arrived at the eastern continent in just a day. Then, he quickly returned to the Warlord Palace and found Lan Yao. Although he only spent a day to rush back, it had been more than half a month since the Great Emperor's heart was taken away by the mysterious expert. "Palace Master, what's the situation now?" Yi Xian asked anxiously. "Yi Xian, you're back?" Lan Yao was shocked when he saw Yi Xian. He knew that Yi Xian was no longer afraid of the Jiang family, since he dared to come back from the chaotic astral ocean. "Deputy Palace Master, I've heard about what happened. Is there any news about the monster race Great Emperor's corpse?" Yi Xian asked quickly. The Great Emperor's was very important to him. After all, his father Yi Chong was stuck at the level 9 king realm. If he could obtain the monster race Great Emperor's corpse, he might be able to break through to the Void God realm. Yes, the Sword God Palace just sent a message. Lan Yao nodded and took out a portrait. This is the portrait of the mysterious expert. It said that he escaped into the wilderness. Yi Xian took the portrait and was shocked. He knew this person. Chapter 693. Yi Xian, have you seen him before? Lan Yao asked hastily when he saw Yi Xian's strange expression. Yes, he is the great elder of the 9th branch. He colluded with the Beast clan and stole the heart of the heavenly dragon from us. Yi Xian nodded. Lan Yao was shocked when he heard this. How could it be him? The great elder of the 9th branch was only at the empty god realm. Even if he stole the heart of the heavenly dragon, it was impossible for him to become so powerful in such a short period of time. Hold on. Jiang Tianjin and I were fighting over the Void God Realm Heavenly Dragon Corpse. The Palace Master had seen it before. This corpse's level is very high. It's at least a level 6 king, Lan Yao suddenly said. Level 6 king. Yi Xian raised his eyebrows. It seemed that the elder of the 9th branch was very lucky to have seen such a powerful corpse. Then, the heart of the heavenly dragon. We humans don't know much about the Beast clan. Although he couldn't comprehend the ultimacy after taking the heart of the heavenly dragon, his physique could be greatly improved. The news from the Sword God Palace also said that he had an extremely strong physique. It seems that he used a special method to become so powerful. Lan Yao said in realization. A level 6 king was not worth mentioning to Yi Xian. However, after the great elder of the 9th branch obtained the empty god realm emperor's corpse, it was unknown. Now that he has obtained the empty god realm emperor's corpse, his strength will definitely increase tremendously. Deputy Palace Master, is the heavenly dragon corpse from the Beast Clan or an ordinary empty god realm beast? Xian asked again. It is from the Beast Clan, Lan Yao replied. If it is the Beast Clan's heart, it can't be refined into the heart of the heavenly dragon. He must have used other methods to become powerful. Xian narrowed his eyes. In the next moment, 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes. He exclaimed, "Oh no!" Now that he has obtained the Beast Clan Emperor's corpse, his strength, after Xian's reminder, Lan Yao came to a realization. The Great Elder of the 9th Branch had become so powerful after obtaining the Beast Clan's heart. Now that he had obtained the monster race Great Emperor's corpse, how powerful would he become? Most importantly, the monster race Great Emperors will still remain within the corpse. Xian, it's better if you don't go. The Sword God's Palace already knows about this matter. They will deal with it, reminded Lan Yao. Deputy Hall Master, don't worry. My current strength is no weaker than Hall Master Situ's, Xian said hurriedly. He said this in a more tactful manner. If he were to fight with Situ Ao Tian, then he would definitely win. This, Lan Yao's heart trembled again. After a moment of hesitation, he said, the Sword God Palace has already sent a team into the depths of the wasteland. How many experts are there in the wasteland? Xian asked curiously. The monster tribe of the Great Wilderness is stronger than the 3 halls combined. The agreement between the Sword God Palace and the monster tribe of the Great Wilderness states that the monster kings of the Great Wilderness are not allowed to leave the Great Wilderness. The Sword God Palace also does not allow great emperors to enter the Great Wilderness, Lan Yao explained. Are there any great emperors of the monster tribe in the Great Wilderness? Xian asked again. I'm not sure about this, but I'm sure there's an expert who is more powerful than the empty god realm Great Emperor. Back then, the Sword God Palace made an agreement with him, Lan Yao said solemnly. Hiss. Xian couldn't help but gasp after hearing this. He asked in shock, is there really an expert who has surpassed the empty god realm? Isn't that a legend? The world thinks it's a legend, but it's not. The seniors of the Sword God Palace have seen him with their own eyes. Otherwise, the Sword God Palace would have gone in and exterminated the monster tribe of the Great Wilderness. Lan Yao shook his head. Xian was stunned. An expert who has surpassed the empty god realm Great Emperor? What realm is he in? Xian asked curiously. I'm not sure, but he's very powerful. Moreover, he seems to be a human, not a monster tribe. Lan Yao revealed another secret. A human, not a monster tribe? Xian raised his eyebrows. Since he was a human, why was he helping the monster tribe of the Great Wilderness? This kind of thing was not something he could know about. All right, Deputy Palace Master, I'll head to the depths of the Great Wilderness immediately. Xian nodded and left the Warlord Hall immediately. If possible, he wanted to obtain the monster tribe Great Emperor's corpse. If he could use it, he would become a great emperor himself. If the devouring system didn't need it, he would give it to Yichong. After leaving the Warlord Hall, Xian headed straight for the Great Wilderness. In less than a day, he arrived at the Great Wilderness. He passed through the outer and inner regions of the Great Wilderness and arrived at the depths of the Great Wilderness. Even the Sword God Palace has not explored the depths of the Great Wilderness. The monster tribe of the Great Wilderness is intimidated by the Sword God Palace. There might be an empty god realm Great Emperor, so I can't let my guard down. Xian thought to himself as he entered the depths of the Great Wilderness. The depths of the Great Wilderness was an unknown place. Xian began to wander around the depths of the Great Wilderness. His speed was very fast. Occasionally, he would encounter some void god beasts, but they were all killed by him. However, the vastness of the Great Wilderness had exceeded his expectations. He traveled in a straight line for 3 days, but he still couldn't find the end. It took him less than half a day to go from the outer regions to the depths of the Great Wilderness. Could it be that the size of this great wasteland is even larger than the chaotic astral sea? Xian thought for a moment before continuing his search. His only clue was the depths of the Great Wilderness. However, he had already arrived at the depths of the Great Wilderness, but he didn't see any monster tribe or humans. However, on the fourth day after he entered the great wilderness, he finally saw some people. Rumble. The commotion in the distance attracted Yi Xian's attention. It's quite a commotion. It seems like a large-scale group battle. Yi Xian's eyes lit up, and he quickly flew over. When he arrived, he saw dozens of figures besieging a few people. Dozens of high-level monster tribe kings besieging 6 people. Yi Xian glanced around and found that Situ Outyin was among the 6 monster tribe kings. He quickly sized them up. Among the dozens of monster tribe kings, there were 9 level 9 monster tribe kings, more than 10 level 8 monster tribe kings, and the rest were all level 7 monster tribe kings. F***CK. Is this the full combat strength of a monster tribe? Yi Xian was shocked. The chaotic astral ocean seemed to have only this much combat strength. He didn't expect the great wilderness to be so powerful. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly glanced around and found a figure 10,000 meters away from the battlefield. It was the Grand Elder of the 9th Hall of the Warlord Hall, Qin Huaizhong. Qin Huaizhong was dressed in black and looked the same as before. At this moment, he also noticed Yi Xian. "We got another guest," Li Yao said. Chapter 694. Yi Xian squinted his eyes and turned around. When he saw that Situ Outyin and the other 5 couldn't hold on any longer, he quickly rushed over. As for Qin Huaizhong, he looked at Yi Xian and didn't make a move. "You are merely from the monster tribe. Die." Yi Xian's eyes widened. If he were to kill these demons, then his cultivation would naturally soar to the 9th level of the king realm. Gravity space, wind space. Yi Xian quickly trapped the weaker kings of the monster tribe. In the next instant, a strong wind blew in the dual space. Huff, death storm. Although these kings of the monster tribe had strong physiques, they were nothing compared to Yi Xian when even Kuang Zun and the War Emperor had died. In the blink of an eye, more than 30 kings of the monster tribe were killed. Their interspatial rings flew toward Yi Xian. What? Situ Outyin and the other 5 kings, the kings of the monster tribe, and Qin Huaizhong were all shocked. How high was Yi Xian's cultivation realm to be able to kill so many kings in one hit? How dare you kill our monster tribe members? You are courting death. The Grand Elder's eyes flashed as he rushed toward Yi Xian. From the moment he saw Qin Huaizhong, Yi Xian had already guessed that Qin Huaizhong was the only one watching from the side. Since so many monster tribe members had surrounded Situ Outyin and the other 5 kings, they had probably submitted to Qin Huaizhong. Only strength could make the kings of the 9 major monster tribes submit to him. Therefore, Qin Huaizhong had most likely become a great emperor. Devour. Yi Xian quickly devoured the interspatial rings. Unfortunately, he didn't become a grade 9 king because of this. At this moment, Qin Huaizhong had already rushed over. In the next instant, Yi Xian felt a strong force that shook his mind and made him want to retreat. This feeling was very similar to when Wu Shang had appeared outside the King of Weapons Hall. Great Emperor intent. Oh no, Qin Huaizhong has really broken through to the empty God realm. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically. He quickly used the dual space on Qin Huaizhong. He could move. 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes. It seemed that he would not be like an ant in front of a void God realm great emperor. Qin Huaizhong, who was flying towards Yi Xian, was startled. His speed had been restricted, which surprised him. But in the next moment, he was enveloped by a strange energy, and the effect of the double space on him was instantly reduced. A cold light flashed by. Qin Huaizhong's eyes widened. A surge of energy instantly dispersed Yi Xian's sword-shattering stars. Great Emperor's will. Is this the Great Emperor's will? Yi Xian was extremely shocked. However, he felt that Qin Huaizhong's Great Emperor was much weaker than Wu Shang's. Perhaps Qin Huaizhong had yet to truly break through to the empty God realm. Since that was the case, he had a chance of winning. He was using the upper-grade virtual God martial art, Wind Cleaver, at the same time, using profound meaning to increase his speed. If one were to compare, his speed was even faster than Qin Huaizhong's. Good boy. I haven't seen you for a year, and you've grown to this extent. You could be considered a heaven-defying monster. But today, I am the sovereign of the beast race. How dare you kill my people? You're courting death. Qin Huaizhong was furious, and he chased after Yixian. He had already merged with the great emperor's heart, and his physique was extremely strong. However, the beast race great emperors had collapsed until only a trace was left. Otherwise, Yixian would have been shocked to death. The great emperors couldn't increase Qin Huaizhong's speed. Moreover, he mainly relied on his physique, which was why he couldn't fly fast. As expected, his great emperors is very weak. It's worlds apart from Wuxiang's. As long as I go around him and deal with the other Beast Kings, I'll be able to break through to the 9th grade Beast King realm and fight him. Yixian thought in his heart. His sword-shattering stars have been directly shattered by Qin Huaizhong's great emperor's will. However, he continued to attack because he guessed that the great emperors would be consumed like true qi. 36 overlapping shadows. 32 layers of earth pulse. Tempest cleave. He attacked and retreated at the same time. Although his attacks were shattered by Qin Huaizhong's great emperor's will, his true qi recovered faster than it was consumed. Damn it, I should have just killed those 6 people. Qin Huaizhong regretted not being able to catch up to Yixian. He had merged with the great emperor's will and become the emperor of the beast race. The 9 beast kings obeyed him. Therefore, he didn't interfere in the battle just now. Instead, he let the beast race subordinates fight. If he had taken action just now, Situ Outyin and the others would have died hundreds of times. Humph, kid, don't think you can escape. I'll show you my true face. Qin Huaizhong suddenly shouted. In the next moment, he transformed into a red sky dragon. His transformation was completed in an instant, unlike the other beast race members who took a long time to transform. So fast, he doesn't have the beast race's curse. Yixian's eyes narrowed. After transforming, Qin Huaizhong's speed increased greatly. He was much faster than Yixian. Yixian cursed in his heart and hurriedly landed on the ground. Profound meaning of earth, ground shrink. Qin Huaizhong didn't expect Yixian to have comprehended shrink. He immediately gathered the great emperor's will and bombarded the ground. Boom, boom, boom. The great emperor's was a very special technique. It had many uses. For example, it could be used to suppress, defend, or even attack. If the profound meaning and domain were merged with the great emperor's will, the power would increase greatly. Wherever Qin Huaizhong's eyes looked, it was like an explosion. The power was several times stronger than raging flames incinerate the heavens. He bombarded the ground more than 10 times and blasted more than 10,000 meters into the ground. He realized that Yixian's aura was gone. Is he dead? Qin Huaizhong narrowed his eyes. However, in the next moment, he suddenly realized something. Oh no! He immediately turned around. He felt that Yixian shouldn't be dead. He must have gone back. Rumble. As expected, when he rushed back, he realized that Yixian had already arrived. At this moment, there were already more than 10 figures in the air. Ding! The host has broken through. The host is now a level 9 king. The system notification sounded. Yixian's eyes flashed. He looked at the red figure and smiled. While the other party was in a daze, he quickly used Shrink to rush back. Then, he killed several beast kings and many level 7 and level 8 kings. The pressure on Situ, Outyin, and the other 5 instantly decreased. The 6 of them were all elites of the Sword God's Palace. Each of them was a genius who could fight against 2 or 3 people at once. That was why they could hold on until now. Just now, Yixian had helped them reduce the pressure, but now that he'd done it again, their opponents were only 5 level 9 Demon Kings and 10 level 7 or 8 Demon Kings. Chapter 695. 36 overlapping images. 32 layered earth pulse. Tempest cleave. Yixian attacked the red sky dragon that was rushing over. Although it was better to use the dragon's judgment and the 8 desolation slaying sword to deal with the sky dragon, the dragon's judgment was too weak. If it couldn't hurt Qin Huaizhong, it wouldn't increase its strength at all. Therefore, Yixian continued to use his normal attacks. Boom, boom, boom. His attacks were dispersed by Qin Huaizhong's emperor intent. After transforming, Qin Huaizhong's strength increased greatly. However, Yi Xian's strength also increased greatly after his breakthrough. Therefore, neither of them had the upper hand. Qin Huaizhong used his emperor intent to intimidate Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian's speed was too fast. After his breakthrough, the emperor intent's effect on him decreased significantly. He used his speed to dodge frantically. Demonic beasts couldn't use their ultimacies after transforming into their true forms. However, the Emperor intent could. The two of them were still at a stalemate. Demonic Beast Emperor, don't worry about us. Hurry up and leave. We demonic beasts can't be exterminated. A grade 9 demonic beast emperor shouted. Qin Huaizhong was originally a human. However, he used a special method to fuse with the heart of a demonic beast. Therefore, he directly surpassed the half-demonic beast level and became a true demonic beast. Now that he had fused with the heart and emperor intent, he had become the demonic beast emperor. He didn't have the curse of the demonic beast on him. This meant that his descendants wouldn't either. The demonic beasts had put in a lot of effort to remove the curse. Although Qin Huaizhong, a human, had obtained it, he was now a demonic beast. How can I, the demonic beast emperor, retreat? Qin Huaizhong didn't listen at all. However, his great emperor's will was stolen after all. It was much weaker than his own great emperor's will. Moreover, the demonic beast emperor had fallen for so long that his emperor intent had mostly dissipated. Therefore, he couldn't do anything to Yi Xian. On the other hand, Yi Xian's strength was constantly increasing. Ding! Throbbing of the Earth 32-layered Earth has transformed into throbbing of the Earth 64-layered Earth. The throbbing of the Earth had transformed at this moment. Its power had increased by several times. All right. Yi Xian's eyes widened as he unleashed 36 overlapping shadows at the red sky dragon. Countless sword lights swept towards Qin Huaizhong. Qin Huaizhong's dragon eyes widened, and his great emperors will press down. But this time, he wasn't able to destroy the 36 overlapping shadows in one go. What? Qin Huaizhong was shocked. He hurriedly extended his claws and dispersed the attack. However, his claws were slightly injured. Good, my attack won't be defeated in one hit. Yi Xian's eyes lit up. Under such circumstances, he did not dare to use up all the true qi in his body to use the sword-shattering stars. The reason why Qin Huaizhong was able to stab him with his sword was because Qin Huaizhong had not transformed, and the distance between them was rather far. At such a close distance, if he didn't have enough true energy, he could very well be killed by the will of the great emperor. Therefore, Yi Xian had been waiting for a chance to kill him in one strike. 36 overlapping shadows. Throbbing pulse of the world, 64 layered waves. Time passed little by little, but Yi Xian's strength continued to increase. At this point, the 36 overlapping shadows could already fuse the 64 layers of the throbbing pulse of the earth 5 times. His attack power was getting stronger and stronger, and Qin Huaizhong's great emperors was getting weaker and weaker. The situation was beginning to tilt in Yi Xian's favor. Qin Huaizhong's heart was getting heavier and heavier. He had no confidence in killing Yi Xian, so he was already thinking of retreating. Although he had the great emperor's will, it was too weak. It wouldn't be too late to seek revenge after he had refined the great emperor's will. After making up his mind, Qin Huaizhong turned around and left, abandoning the experts of the Yao race. Although the Yao race had already made up their minds, they still felt a chill in their hearts when they saw Qin Huaizhong retreat. Once Qin Huaizhong left, they would definitely die. Not only that, but the entire Yao race would be wiped out. However, Qin Huaizhong didn't have the Yao race's curse, and his descendants wouldn't either. When the time came, there would be a new Yao race, a stronger one. You still want to leave? Yi Xian's eyes flickered. Qin Huaizhong had already become a Yao race enemy of the humans. If he escaped, the eastern continent would be in danger. Therefore, he had to stay. 36 overlapping shadows. 64 layered earth pulse. The 64 layered earth pulse combined 7 times flew towards Qin Huaizhong. Qin Huaizhong still used the great emperor's will to defend, but Yi Xian's attacks were getting stronger and stronger. The great emperors couldn't defeat Yi Xian's attack in one go, and Yi Xian's attacks were getting stronger. As he was retreating, he was finally injured by Yi Xian. 10 times, 11 times, 12 times. Yi Xian's strength continued to grow, while Qin Huaizhong's injuries were getting worse. Roar! At this moment, Qin Huaizhong suddenly roared to the sky, turned around, and charged. He was going all out. Yi Xian furrowed his brows and attacked with all his might. Ding! Host has comprehended the profound meaning of lifting light as heavy. At this moment, another notification sounded from the system. Lifting light as heavy. This was the 3-layered profound meaning of strength. Haha, you're dead meat. Yi Xian suddenly laughed loudly. 36 overlapping shadows. 64 layered earth pulse. Boom! A sword ray slammed into Qin Huaizhong's body. Although this attack was weakened by Qin Huaizhong's great emperor's will, Yi Xian's attack power had at least doubled after he comprehended lifting light as heavy. At this moment, Qin Huaizhong would need to use at least 3 great emperors to defeat Yi Xian's attack. Roar! Qin Huaizhong roared in pain. This is my chance. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yi Xian suddenly stabbed with his right hand holding the 8 desolate sword. 8 desolate sword play. Sword shatters the stars. Puffed. The cold light sank into Qin Huaizhong's body. After a painful roar, he withered inch by inch. Looking at the rain of blood in front of him, Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally killed Qin Huaizhong. If Qin Huaizhong did not die, the eastern continent would not be peaceful. However, Yi Xian felt that Qin Huaizhong was still a long way from becoming an empty god realm great emperor. He could only be considered a half-step great emperor. His great emperors was too far away. At this moment, a wave of spiritual energy floated over. Yi Xian hurriedly took Qin Huaizhong's interspatial ring. This interspatial ring contained a large amount of treasures. At the same time, there was an unusual corpse. It was the corpse of a great emperor of the demonic beast race. However, it was missing a heart. Without another word, Yi Xian devoured the heavenly and earthly treasures inside, causing his cultivation to improve a little. After breaking through to level 9 Sovereign, the system did not give any notification. It seems like there are no shackles for me to break through to Empty God Realm Great Emperor. Chapter 696. Yi Xian, your strength has increased to such a level. That's terrifying. Situ Outyin praised and asked, did the Monster King escape? He's dead. I killed him. Yi Xian replied faintly. Situ Outyin and the other 5 were stunned when they heard the reply. They gasped. They knew that Qin Huaizhong was not an empty god realm great emperor, but he had the will of a great emperor. However, Yi Xian was able to kill him. He was extremely powerful. Now that the Monster King and the 9 great kings of monsters are dead, let's go and find the base camp of the monster tribe and eliminate them. Situ Outyin shouted. All right. Yi Xian nodded. As long as they killed all the monster tribe in the wilderness, the eastern mainland would be connected to the main mainland. However, at that moment, suddenly, an old voice was heard. Everyone trembled and turned around. They saw an old man in a white robe standing 100 meters away from them. What? Even I didn't notice? Yi Xian was shocked. He was a grade 9 overlord and his strength was stronger than Situ Outyin and the other 5 combined. However, he did not notice how the old man in a white robe got close to him. Powerful. The old man in a white robe was most likely an empty god realm great emperor. May I ask who you are? Situ Outyin cupped his fist and asked. He was the disciple of Sword God Palace's Liu Yang Sword God and had met all the palace masters. However, he had never seen the old man in a white robe before. I am Tianju Elder. The old man in a white robe replied. The name was unfamiliar to Yi Xian. However, Situ Outyin and the other 3 had heard of it before. Senior, you are? Situ Outyin stammered. Situ Ao Tian said with a trembling voice. When Yi Xian saw him like this, he immediately reacted. Could the old man in a white robe be an expert who had surpassed the empty god realm great emperor in the wilderness? Yes, this old man has some connections with the demon clan. The reason why I'm here is because I don't want you to kill them all. From now on, I will restrict the demon clan. They will not be able to leave the depths of the great wasteland. You humans can also connect to the main continent from the great wasteland. Old Immortal Tion, Ju, said indifferently. This, Situ Outyin and the other 5 exchanged glances. However, Yi Xian heard something strange. You humans? This meant that Old Immortal Tion Ju was not human. Old Immortal Tion Ju was related to the Yao clan, but he was not a human. Then what was he? All right, we agree. Situ Outyin nodded. Since that's the case, let's use this place as the boundary. As Old Immortal Tion Ju spoke, the ground beneath his feet suddenly cracked open. A crack so long that one could not see the end of it slowly opened up to form a canyon. What kind of technique is this? Yi Xian was shocked. With just a thought, the ground cracked open to form an endless canyon. Even Yi Xian, who had the earth attribute void spirit, could not do that. From here onwards, it will be the boundary of you humans. I will also set up a formation here. No demon clan will be able to leave. Old Immortal Tion Ju pointed at the canyon below and said, Yes, senior. Yi Xian and the others nodded. When their voices rang out, a formation rose up in the middle of the canyon, separating the 2 sides. Yi Xian and the others did not see how Old Immortal Tion Ju set up the formation. When they regained their senses, they realized that Old Immortal Tion Ju had disappeared without a trace. So powerful, Yi Xian's heart skipped a beat. Old Immortal Tion Ju came and went without a trace. They did not know what realm he was at. This is too terrifying. He is at least an advanced great emperor. He might even be a prime who has surpassed the empty god realm. Situ Outyin swallowed his saliva. Prime. Yi Xian raised his eyebrows. This was the second time he had heard of this term. The first time he had heard of it was in the Zephyr Thunder Palace. At that time, the Zephyr Thunder Emperor had left a message saying that he hoped that his successor could become a prime. It turned out that after the empty god realm great emperor was the prime. All right, this matter has come to an end. We have to bring the news back. Situ Outyin said as he turned to Yi Xian and said, Yi Xian, are you coming with us? Going to the Sword God Palace. Yi Xian asked, Yes, you are already a grade 9 king. If you can reach the Sword God Tower, you will be accepted as a disciple by a palace master. However, I reckon that even if you don't reach the tower, a palace master will accept you as a disciple. Situ Outyin said with a smile. Yi Xian understood what he meant. The main hall master of the Warlord Hall, Duanmu Yun, had already broken through to the empty god realm great emperor. As long as the other palace masters agreed, he could accept a disciple. Jiang Wenyue was the same. That was why he had accepted his son, Jiang Tianjin, as a disciple. However, in terms of aptitude, Yi Xian had already surpassed Jiang Tianjin and even the palace master, who could become a peak empty god realm king at the age of 22. All right, Yi Xian nodded. He felt that it was time to meet his father. The Sword God Palace was located in another corner of the wilderness. However, with Yi Xian around, it only took them 7 days to reach the Sword God Palace from the depths of the wilderness. The Sword God Palace was built on top of the Sword God Tower. If one was not a member of the Sword God Palace, one would have to climb to the top of the tower. There were many cave dwellings built by experts near the Sword God Tower. At that moment, Situ, Outyin, and the other 5 arrived in front of a cliff. There was a huge golden door there. This is the cave dwelling of the palace master of the 7 Knights Palace. Yi Xian, you can wait here for a while. When I return to the Sword God Palace, I will. Before Situ Outyin could finish his sentence, the huge golden door opened with a loud bang, and a man's voice drifted out. I am the cave dwelling. Come in. The voice belonged to Duanmu Yun. So Palace Master Duanmu is here. In that case, we will take our leave first. Situ Outyin cupped his fists at Yi Xian and left immediately. Yi Xian watched them leave before he turned around and stepped into the huge door. Boom! The huge golden door closed again. After Yi Xian entered the cave dwelling, he walked straight until he finally arrived at a magnificent palace surrounded by flowers. At that moment, there were two figures standing at the entrance of the palace. One of them was Duan Muyun, and the man beside her was Yi Xian, who had not seen him for more than 10 years, Yi Chong. Although they had not seen each other for more than 10 years, Yi Xian recognized Yi Chong at a glance. Father! Yi Xian strode forward. Yi Chong had left when Yi Xian was young, so he was unfamiliar with Yi Xian's appearance. However, the same blood flowed in their bones, so Yi Chong did not suspect anything. Yi Chong watched as Yi Xian ran in front of him and sized him up carefully. Father, I am here. Yi Xian knelt on one knee and cupped his fists at Yi Chong. Chapter 697. Good. Yi Chong was overjoyed, but he suddenly felt guilty. He had left Yi Xian when he was still young. It had been more than 10 years since then. He did not know how Yi Xian had spent the past 10 years. Father and son are reunited. There must be a lot to talk about. Come in. Duan Muyun smiled at the two of them and led them into the palace. Indeed, they had not seen each other for more than 10 years. They must have endless things to talk about. Yi Xian was very excited when he saw Yi Chong. He began to talk about his experiences and the current situation of the Yi family. They chatted for a few hours. Duan Muyun sat quietly at the side and listened to the two of them talk. He did not seem impatient at all. Yi Chong was his good friend. He was very happy that Yi Xian had come to find him. Yi Xian, what is your current realm? Yi Chong could not help but ask. He felt that Yi Xian's aura was very strong and was not much weaker than his. Father, I am already a grade 9 king. Yi Xian answered honestly. Yi Chong nodded satisfactorily. Not bad. I can feel that your aura is very strong. It is not weaker than mine. Yi Xian looked at Yi Chong's pale face and asked, Father, how are your injuries? There are no serious injuries, but there are many hidden injuries. I am afraid there is no hope for me to break through to the empty God realm. Yi Chong shook his head helplessly. Father, won't it be fine as long as we get the great emperor's will? Yi Xian raised his eyebrows. Duan Muyun suddenly said, It is not that easy to get the great emperor's will. Under normal circumstances, when an empty God realm great emperor dies, the great emperor's will dissipate immediately. The great emperor of the monster race in the wilderness used a special method to preserve his will. However, after so many years, it has mostly dissipated. This situation is very rare. Don't worry, I will definitely get it. Yi Xian was very confident. After all, there were no shackles on his breakthrough this time. As long as he had enough experience, he could become a great emperor. All right, I believe you. Yi Chong patted Yi Xian's shoulder excitedly. Yi Xian looked away and asked, Senior Duan Muyun, are there any conditions for me to challenge the Sword God Pagoda? No, just go straight ahead. Duan Muyun shook his head but Nihility God Realm Emperor. Doesn't that mean no one will be able to pass? Yi Xian frowned. With a Void God Realm Great Emperor as the gatekeeper, it was too difficult. No one will be able to pass. Duan Muyun still shook his head. No, those who pass the Sword God Pagoda will indeed enter the Sword God Palace. However, there will occasionally be palace masters watching. If they think you're not bad, they will directly accept you into the Sword God Palace. I see. Yi Xian nodded and said, However, I hope to defeat Jiang Wenyue and enter the Sword God Pagoda. That's a good idea. Duan Muyun said faintly, but Jiang Wenyue has broken through to the Void God Realm and condensed Great Emperor intent. His strength is at least 10 times stronger than the monster emperor you encountered. It will be difficult for you to defeat him with your current strength. Monster Emperor Qin Huaizhong's Great Emperor intent was very weak. However, Jiang Wenyue had broken through to the Void God Realm on his own. His Great Emperor intent was 10 times stronger than Qin Huaizhong's. If Yi Xian fought against him, he would be killed instantly. Don't worry, I can challenge the first 9 levels. Yi Xian said. He was already a grade 9 king. One more breakthrough, and he would become a Void God Realm Great Emperor. Before he broke through, he would not be able to defeat Jiang Wenyue. However, after breaking through, Yi Xian was not afraid of Jiang Wenyue. Yes, you can try first. Even if you can't increase your strength, you can quickly comprehend the profound at the 5th and 8th levels. Duamuya nodded. The 5th level of the Sword God Pagoda was the Earth level. The Guardian was an Earth attribute peak, void, God Realm King. Yi Xian could increase his strength if he fought against him. However, Yi Xian wanted to increase his strength the most. Father, is Mother doing well? Yi Xian suddenly asked. She has been in the Sword God Pagoda. She also has a heart demon, so she has not broken through to the Void God Realm Great Emperor. Yi Chong shook his head. Seeing Yi Chong's gloomy expression, Yi Xian was motivated. He had to rush up the Sword God Pagoda and defeat Jiang Wenyue to reunite Yi Chong and Jiang Xinyan. Let's not talk about this for now. Can you refine the sword essence? Duan Muyun suddenly changed the topic. Not yet. Yi Xian shook his head. He didn't have enough Devourer crystals, so he couldn't refine the sword essence. Otherwise, he would have rushed up the Sword God Pagoda. After all, Duan Muyun said that if he refined the sword essence, he could kill and void God Realm Great Emperor, even if he was only a grade 3 king. Then continue to work hard. Duan Muyun nodded. She didn't tell Yi Xian what the sword essence was. Father, Senior, I want to take a look at the Sword God Pagoda. Yi Xian suddenly stood up. It's north of the cave dwelling. Let me take you there. Yi Chong nodded. Since you want to go, let's go together. Duan Muyun also stood up. Immediately, the three of them flew toward the towering Sword God Pagoda under Duan Muyun's lead. The Sword God Pagoda was built by the first palace master of the Sword God Pagoda. Only those who are recognized by the Sword God Pagoda can fly up the pagoda. If anyone flies up without permission, they will be killed on the spot by the guards of the Sword God Pagoda, Duan Muyun explained while flying. Senior, are there many people in the Sword God Pagoda? Yi Xian asked with a frown. There are a total of 9 palaces in the Sword God Pagoda. I am the palace master of the 7-Night Palace. Situ Outyin is the disciple of the 6th Sun Palace Master. Jiang Wenyue is the palace master of the 9th Heaven Palace. As for your mother, Jiang Xinyan, she is in the 4-Moon Palace. The Sword God Pagoda has been established for many years, and there are many disciples in each palace. However, the Sword God Pagoda accepts these disciples, but not their children. Their children have to rely on their strength to ascend the pagoda. Duan Muyun turned to look in another direction and said, There is a city of 10,000 swords over there. The relatives of the disciples of the Sword God Pagoda usually live there. I see. Yi Xian nodded. No wonder Jiang Wenyue wanted to accept his son as his disciple. It was because of this. However, the Sword God Pagoda had been established for so many years. If it was passed down from generation to generation, there would be more than 1,000 disciples. Soon, the three of them saw a huge pagoda. Chapter 698. Yi Xian was shocked because he realized that the 2 guards were actually level 8 sovereigns. The Sword God's palace was indeed extraordinary. Yi Chong was already a regular at the Sword God's palace, so the 2 guards recognized him and nodded slightly at him. However, this was Yi Xian's first time here. He's going to challenge the tower today. Duan Muyun glanced at Yi Xian and said, The guardians of the first 9 levels of the Sword God's pagoda are all illusions set up by the seniors. If you want to pass, you have to kill them. Understood? Yi Xian nodded. Since that was the case, he could go all out. The 2 guards were stunned, but Yi Xian had already entered the Sword God's pagoda. From the outside, the Sword God's pagoda was huge, but it was less than 10,000 meters in diameter. However, after Yi Xian entered, he couldn't see the end of it. So this is an illusion formation. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. This illusion formation was very advanced. After all, a level 9 sovereign's domain was more than 90,000 meters. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The guardians of the first 9 levels of the Sword God's pagoda were the same as the challenger. The one standing in front of Yi Xian was the Guardian of Gold. Kid, you can only pass if you kill me. The middle-aged man held a golden sword and said to Yi Xian indifferently, Excuse me. Although the person in front of him was just a person formed by the illusion formation, Yi Xian still said politely. In the next moment, The middle-aged man felt an extremely strong pressure. Bang! The pressure of the double space instantly caused the middle-aged man's body to explode. Blood splattered everywhere, and broken limbs scattered all over the ground. The illusion formation is really good. It's so realistic. Yi Xian sighed. In the next moment, he saw a staircase leading to the second level. Outside the Sword God's pagoda, the lights on the first level had already lit up, which meant that Yi Xian had passed the first level. So fast. Xian is actually so strong. Yi Chong was shocked. Even if he wanted to pass the first level, it wouldn't be so easy. It seems that his strength has exceeded my expectations. Yi Chong, stay here and watch. I'll go up and take a look. Duan Muyun was interested and flew into the clouds, preparing to watch from the Sword God's pagoda. There were some pagoda mirrors in the Sword God's pagoda, so they could see the images of the pagoda's pagoda. When Duan Muyun returned to the Sword God Palace, he immediately rushed over. However, when he arrived, he discovered that Yi Xian had already passed the second stage. So fast. At this moment, some disciples of the Sword God's Palace happened to pass by and noticed this scene. Past the second's pagoda's Xian S's S. Another SSS pagoda and Simen is the S realm's pagoda, S's realm. SE, S's pagoda. S Yez's. This Yi, S pagoda. S. SS1's third stage, 1 second. Fourth S's. Fifths. Yi Xian was very fast. He soon reached the 7th level. Seven Knights Palace Master. Is Yi Chong here again? Suddenly, an old voice drifted over. Duan Muyun turned around and saw an acquaintance. He greeted Luyong Palace Master. The newcomer was Situ Outyan's master, Luyong Sword God. It's not Yi Chong. Who's this kid? Luyong Sword God glanced at the pagoda mirror. In the next moment, he was stunned. He's insta-killed the 7th level. The combination of gravity space and wind space? Indeed, the older the wiser. Luyong Sword God, who is a Void God Realm Great Emperor, saw through Yi Xian's. At this moment, Yi Xian had already entered the 8th stage. That kid's. It seems to be the Wind Thunder Emperor's. The weapon in his hand is the Wind Dragon Slash. Luyong Sword God discovered another secret. After his reminder, Duan Muyun also felt that it was true. The Wind Thunder Emperor was their senior. 1,000 years ago, he was also the Palace Master of Sword God Palace. However, they heard that the Wind Thunder Emperor went to the chaotic astral ocean when his lifespan was nearing its end. I see. This kid has inherited the Wind Thunder Emperor's legacy. Duan Muyun immediately understood. As the two chatted, Yi Xian passed the 8th level and entered the 9th level. Good kid. What high aptitude. I want this kid. Luyong Sword God's eyes lit up. However, Duan Muyun suddenly said, He's Yi Chong's son. Yi Xian. What? Luyong Sword God suspected that he had heard wrongly. Yi Chong's son's aptitude is so high. He was wondering if he should offend those people from Nine Heavens Palace for Yi Xian. However, he decided against it. Jiang Wenyue had just broken through to Void God Realm Great Emperor. He was not a threat. However, the Nine Heavens Sword God was very strong and domineering. Otherwise, with Yi Chong's aptitude, he would have entered Sword God Palace long ago. The reason why no one accepted him was because they did not want to offend the Nine Heavens Sword God. Luyong Sword God was very conflicted. Luyong Palace's strength was weaker. Hence, Luyong Sword God was eager to accept Yi Xian as his disciple. However, he was afraid of angering the Nine Heavens Sword God. At this moment, Yi Xian had already killed the gatekeeper of the 9th level and entered the 10th level. However, the gatekeeper of the 10th level was Jiang Wenyue. At this moment, he did not know that Yi Xian had already entered the 10th level. Since he's Yi Chong's son, I'm afraid he'll end up the same as Yi Chong if he goes up against Jiang Wenyue. It's a pity that Jiang Xinyan is grounded. She can't come out until she reaches Void God Realm Great Emperor. She can't even see her own son. Luyong Sword God sighed. When Yi Xian entered the 10th level, someone from Sword God Palace had already informed Jiang Wenyue. However, Jiang Wenyue did not know that the person entering the tower was Yi Xian. In Nine Heaven Palace, Nine Heaven Palace Master, someone has already entered the 10th level of the Sword God Pagoda. A middle-aged man who resembled Jiang Tianjin opened his eyes and snorted. Is it Yi Chong again? Humph. After a few months of peace, he's overestimating himself again. In fact, he had been annoyed for a long time. He regretted not killing Yi Chong back then. Jiang Wenyue stood up and left Nine Heaven Palace. At this moment, Yi Xian was waiting on the 10th level. The first 9 levels were filled with opponents formed by the illusion array. He had directly used the dual space to crush the illusions. However, the one on the 10th level was his uncle, Jiang Wenyue. When Jiang Tianjin entered Sword God Palace, he was only a grade 4 king. Now, he should be at most grade 7 or 8. He is no longer a challenge to me. Yi Xian thought as he waited. Chapter 699. Jiang Wenyue had defeated Yi Xian 1,000 times, so Yi Xian wanted to see what Jiang Wenyue was capable of. He waited for a while on the 10th floor. Soon after, the door opened and a middle-aged man walked in. The middle-aged man was Jiang Tianjin's father, Jiang Wenyue. However, he felt a strange sensation when he entered. He had guessed wrongly because the one who had reached the 10th floor was not Yi Chong. Who are you? Why do you have the Jiang family's bloodline? Jiang Wenyue squinted his eyes and asked. The Jiang family of the Weapon King Hall was powerful, but they were nothing in the Sword God Palace's territory. In his memory, he was the strongest expert in the Jiang family, followed by Jiang Xinyan, Jiang Tianjin, and the grade 6 king, Old Master Jiang. However, Yi Xian could reach the 10th floor and had the Jiang family's bloodline. He could not figure out who he was. I am Yi Xian. Yi Xian cupped his fists and smiled. Yi. Jiang Wenyue was very sensitive to the surname Yi. You are Yi Xian? Jiang Wenyue asked in shock. That's right. Yi Xian replied faintly. As expected, Jiang Wenyue was shocked. Previously, he'd heard the news from the Jiang family. After hearing it, he was also very surprised. After all, Yi Xian had tortured his second son once. In just a few months, Yi Xian had grown to such a level. Yi Chong's talent was not inferior to his. If Yi Chong had been nurtured by the Jiang family since young, he would have broken through to the empty god realm Great Emperor realm. However, Yi Chong's son, Yi Xian, was even more talented. Jiang Wenyue calculated and found that Yi Xian was 22 years old. A grade 9 king at 22 years old would definitely become an empty god realm Great Emperor in the future. What a father and son. Yi Chong has entered the tower thousands of times, but has never succeeded. I thought he had given up in the past few months, but it seems that he has shown his trump card. Jiang Wenyue snorted. I will fulfill my father's wish. Empyrean Palace Master. Yi Xian said coldly. The man in front of him was his mother's older brother, who was also his uncle. However, the Jiang family did not acknowledge him, so he would not acknowledge this uncle. The two of them were now opponents. Do you think that you have the qualifications to pass just because you become a 9th rank king? Jiang Wenyue said disdainfully. My goal is to enter the Sword God Pagoda. Yi Xian replied in a cold tone. There were 2 ways to enter the Sword God Pagoda. The first was through the Sword God Pagoda. The second was that a certain palace lord had taken a liking to him and accepted him as a subordinate. At this moment, Yi Xian was thinking that even if he couldn't beat Jiang Wenyue, he would definitely be chosen by one of the palace lords based on his aptitude. At that time, wouldn't he be able to enter the Sword God's palace? Ha ha ha, you're too naive. Do you think that a palace master would take a fancy to you? Jiang Wenyue suddenly laughed out loud. At this moment, there were only 5 palace lords in the Sword God's palace, including him and Duan Muyun. They were respectively Tai, 4th moon, 6th sun, 7th night, and 9th heaven. In the Sword God's palace, Tai Palace and 9th Heaven Palace were the strongest. Tai Palace did not care about worldly affairs, so 9th Heaven Palace was more or less in charge of the Sword God's palace. In addition, 9th Heaven Sword God was very strong, so no one dared to accept Yi Chong. Even if Yi Xian revealed his extraordinary aptitude, he still needed someone to accept him. Seventh Night Palace Lord Wanmuyun was also an outsider, so she needed the approval of the other palace lords to accept a disciple. Most importantly, Fourth Moon Palace and Ninth Heaven Palace were on the same side, and Sixth Sun Palace did not want to provoke Ninth Heaven Palace. Therefore, Jiang Wenyue felt that Yi Xian's words were laughable. However, Yi Xian's words were just a passing remark. His real goal was to suppress Jiang Wenyue. You father and son, both of you overestimate yourselves. Come, let me see what you're capable of. Jiang Wenyue shouted angrily as he recalled the incident where his youngest son, Jiang Tiansheng, was brutally beaten up by Yi Xian. Then you better be careful. Ninth Heaven Palace Lord, if you're not careful, you'll be killed by me. Yi Xian sneered and raised a wind dragon slash in his hand. Tempest Cloud slash. Xiao. The sound of air breaking rang out as the green slash approached Jiang Wenyue. Wind, thunder, great emperor? Jiang Wenyue suddenly realized. In the next moment, the Tempest Cloud slash was destroyed by his great emperor intent. This attack was not Yi Xian's strongest attack. First of all, the wind dragon slash had not been obtained for long, and the time it took to nurture, it was not even 1/5 of the Bahuang sword. Secondly, although the wind blade profound could increase his attack power, how could the wind blade profound compare to the 64-layered earth pulse? Not bad, but you think you can defeat me with this? Jiang Wenyue mocked. Hee hee. Yi Xian grinned and kept the wind dragon slash. In the next moment, he took out the Bahuang sword. Sword God Bahuang's weapon. Jiang Wenyue squinted his eyes. Sword God Bahuang was one of the palace masters of the Sword God Palace. However, he had fallen, leaving the Bahuang Palace empty. Until now, no one had broken through to the empty God realm. However, Jiang Wenyue had heard of Sword God Bahuang's name before. Sword God Bahuang was stronger than his master, second only to Sword God Tai. If Sword God Bahuang was still alive, Jiang Wenyue would not be able to defeat him even if he had 10 heads. However, the one holding the Bahuang sword was Yi Xian, so why should he be afraid? 36 overlapping shadows. 64 layered earth pulse. A brown sword chi attacked Jiang Wenyue again. Jiang Wenyue stared, and the power of the sword chi was reduced by half. What? Jiang Wenyue was shocked. His thought was not enough to disperse the attack. How is this possible? Yi Xian smirked. What a joke. When he fought with Qin Huaizhong, his strength was a few times weaker than now. Why? It was because he had comprehended the light as heavy intent at the last moment. This was the triple profound of strength. In addition to his continuous improvement, the number of times he merged the earth pulse to the 36 overlapping shadows increased. Every time he merged the earth pulse, his attack power would increase exponentially. Currently, he had merged 18 times. Although Jiang Wenyue was an empty God realm emperor, he was only a rank 1 emperor. In addition to his sword god bloodline, he wanted to disperse Yi Xian's attack with a thought. No way. Nine Heavens Palace Master, your emperor intent is not that great. Yi Xian suddenly laughed and started attacking crazily. Whether it was empty God realm kings or empty God realm emperors, they all relied on their intents. Yi Xian's intents had far surpassed those geniuses. Of the wind and earth attributes, the only one he had yet to fully comprehend was the throbbing pulse of the world. Although the emperor intent was strong, a battle between emperors relied on their emperor intent to merge into their attacks. Chapter 700. Kid, don't be so arrogant. I'll show you what an empty God realm great emperor is like. Jiang Wenyue roared as his figure flashed and swept towards Yi Xian. Like Jiang Tianjin, he was of the fire attribute and had strong attack power. Earth walking technique, 4 agility advancements, repulsive acceleration, and wind acceleration allowed Yi Xian's speed to surpass Jiang Wenyue's. Although Jiang Wenyue was an empty God realm great emperor, it didn't mean that he had comprehended all the ultimates. He had only comprehended the inextinguishable flames and rising from the ashes, which was much weaker than Jiang Tianjin. His great emperor's will and inextinguishable flames couldn't even touch Yi Xian. In other words, he he was a moving sandbag. 36 overlapping shadows. Earth pulse 64 layers. Great wind cloud slash. Yi Xian's hands continued to attack. Not only that, but he also used various ultimates. Although Jiang Wenyue was protected by the Great Emperor's will, these attacks were able to weaken his Great Emperor's will. On the other hand, Yi Xian's energy consumption was equal. The scene of the two's battle was reflected on the tower's mirror. The disciples of Sword God Palace were shocked. Liu Yang Sword God was also shocked. Even Duanmu Yun was shocked to the point of speechlessness. A Grade 9 king was actually fighting an empty god realm Great Emperor? This was the first time they had seen it. That's right. This kid once obtained 2 Sword God bloodline seeds and refined one of them. This fitness bloodline seed can increase the power of one sword skills by 50%. No wonder Jiang Wenyue couldn't instantly defeat his attack. Duanmu Yin suddenly realized. However, Yi Xian's 36 instantaneous attacks were extremely powerful. When combined with the Earth Pulse, the power was extremely strong. More and more disciples gathered in front of the tower's mirror. There were dozens of disciples from all 9 palaces. When the disciples of 9 Heavens Palace saw that their palace master couldn't even deal with a Grade 9 king, they were so ashamed that they wanted to find a hole to hide in. Some of them had better aptitude than Jiang Wenyue, but Jiang Wenyue was favored by Sword God Zhoutian. What could they do? Duanmu Yin watched for a while before he quickly left the Sword God Palace. He wanted to inform Yi Chong, who was anxiously waiting at the bottom of the Sword God Pagoda. 10th floor of the Sword God Pagoda. 9 Heavens Palace Master. Are all the palace masters of Sword God Palace as weak as you? Yi Xian laughed. Fortunately, he had the Sword God's Pagoda. The battle inside the Sword God's Pagoda was on the ground. If it were in the air, he would not have the movement speed bonus from the 4 agility advancements. Without the 40% movement speed boost, he naturally couldn't dodge Jiang Wenyue's attacks and Emperor's will. Bastard! Jiang Wenyue was fuming with anger. He was a Void God Stage Great Emperor, but he was actually tricked by Yi Xian, a level 9 king. How could he tolerate this? However, the Emperor's will could not increase his speed. Yi Xian was too fast, and his Emperor's will could not keep up. If he separated the Great Emperor's will, the effect would be greatly reduced, and it would be useless. After all, Yi Xian still had the 64 layers of pulsating guard, which could be used to block the Emperor's will. For a moment, Jiang Wenyue really couldn't do anything to Yi Xian. However, the gap between the two was constantly changing. Let's wear each other out. Although it's a little disgraceful, as long as we can win, it doesn't matter what method we use. Yi Xian's eyes flickered. The sacred tree of life was a part of his strength. Moreover, Jiang Wenyue was a Void God Stage Great Emperor, and he was only a level 9 king. This was an unfair battle. In this world, the strong were respected. If this was a battle of life and death, Yi Xian would not hesitate to use sneak attacks, hidden weapons, or poison as long as he could win. In this world, many seniors would teach their juniors that it was not shameful to use unscrupulous methods, but it was shameful to die. Bastard, don't run if you have the guts. Jiang Wenyue's head was fuming with anger as he roared loudly. His voice was deafening, but Yi Xian was unmoved. He ran and attacked at the same time. His Jinqi consumption was equal to his Jinqi recovery. He was always at peak condition. As for Jiang Wenyue, his Great Emperors will have to defend against Yi Xian's domain attacks, break through the 36 overlapping shadows, and try to intimidate Yi Xian from time to time. His Great Emperors was rapidly depleting. The two of them, one chasing, one running, circled around the 10th level. More than 10 minutes passed like this. Jiang Wenyue's expression darkened. Only a third of his Great Emperors was left. Not only that, but his Jinqi was also running low. Logically speaking, Yi Xian's Jinqi should have been depleted long ago. However, Yi Xian was still alive and kicking, as if only a few seconds had passed. Jiang Wenyue couldn't understand this. This kid is weird. He can't use up all his Jinqi. I can't do anything to him. What should I do? Jiang Wenyue pondered in his heart. He was a Void God Realm Emperor. If he was defeated by Yi Xian, he might as well resign from the Ninth Heaven's Palace Master position. However, he couldn't think of anything even after thinking for more than 10 minutes. Now, he no longer attacked Yixian. Instead, he started to evade. His actions fell into the eyes of the Sword God Palace's disciples. The Ninth Heaven's Palace Master has given up on attacking. Is he admitting defeat? This is too terrifying. A Void God Realm Emperor actually jumped realms to challenge a Void God Realm Emperor. Is this kid the successor of the 8 Desolation Sword God? If he enters, will he become the 8 Desolation Palace Master? Just as these disciples were discussing, someone suddenly shouted, "Shut up!" When this voice entered everyone's ears, they turned around in astonishment and found that the one who spoke was a young man. Not good, it's Jiang Tianjin. Everyone recognized this young man because they were jealous of Jiang Tianjin. A few days ago, Jiang Tianjin had been accepted by Jiang Wenyue into the Ninth Heaven's Palace and had gained the favor of the Ninth Heaven Sword God. Subsequently, the Ninth Heaven Sword God had bestowed Jiang Tianjin with an Emperor's Will. This Emperor's Will was left behind by a Void God Realm Emperor that the Ninth Heaven Sword God had killed. Although the Emperor's Will would dissipate after the death of a Void God Realm Emperor, the Ninth Heaven Sword God had a special method to capture it. This Emperor's Will was a 3rd stage Emperor's Will. With the Ninth Heaven Sword God's help, Jiang Tianjin had already refined it. Currently, Jiang Tianjin was a 3rd stage Emperor, stronger than Jiang Wenwei. It was said that Jiang Tianjin was applying for the position of the 8 Desolation Palace Master. Damn it, before I refined the Emperor's Will, I was only a 7th stage Emperor. How can he be a 9th stage Emperor? Jiang Tianjin was furious. Previously, Yixian was at his mercy. Today, although his cultivation realm had suppressed Yixian, his birth was countless times better than Yixian's. Therefore, he couldn't help but feel a little indignant. At the bottom of this book's cover, it says that this book was released on August 24th, and until today, December 1st, there are exactly 700 chapters. That's exactly 99 days. On average, Yuluo updates 7 chapters a day, which is 15,000 words. I'm not bragging, but Yuluo's speed has surpassed 99% of the books in my library. Among the hundreds of thousands of books in my library, my speed can be ranked in the top 100. Yuluo can't be the best, but she can do better than most people. I hope everyone can understand. Chapter 701. Jiang Tianjin stared fixedly at the tower mirror on the 10th floor. At this moment, a shocking scene occurred in the battle that shocked everyone present. The Ninth Heaven Palace Master, Jiang Wenyue, was struck by Yixian's sword and was sent flying. The entire crowd was shocked. At this moment, Duan Muyin had just returned and witnessed the scene. Great! Duan Muyin couldn't help but shout. His voice entered everyone's ears, including Jiang Tianjin's. Jiang Tianjin's face was gloomy as he watched in disbelief. Jiang Wenyue, an empty God Realm Emperor, was struck by Yixian, a 9th grade king. How is this possible? Father's Emperor's intent has been depleted. Jiang Tianjin immediately reacted. At this moment, he couldn't wait to rush in and kill Yixian. Jiang Wenyue was only 1 grade higher than Yixian, and his cultivation couldn't make up for the difference in ultimacy. However, Jiang Tianjin was a 3rd grade Emperor, and he could easily kill Yixian. Unfortunately, the gatekeeper wasn't him. On the 10th floor of the Sword God Pagoda, Ninth Heaven Palace Master, how did you become the Palace Master with your strength? Yixian grinned and slowly walked over. At this moment, Jiang Wenyue was restrained by Yixian's dual space. Without the Emperor's intent, his speed was only 30% of his peak. Damn it, Jiang Wenyue shouted. He had never thought that he would be defeated by a 9th grade Emperor. TSK, 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 Ninth Heaven Palace Master, you're not strong enough. Why don't you give up your position and let me have a try? Yixian continued to mock. He wanted to take revenge for all these years. Some of this hatred was from Yicheng, while some was from himself. Yicheng had been beaten by Jiang Wenyue, and he had been beaten by Jiang Tianjin. Today, he had beaten Jiang Tianjin's father. It was really satisfying. Swish! A wind blade cut open Jiang Wenyue's arm. followed by an earth spike that pierced his thigh. At this moment, Yi Xian felt that his soul was about to be refined. What a pity! Yi Xian shook his head. He regretted that Yi Chong couldn't see this scene. Kill me if you have the guts. Jiang Wenyue gritted his teeth and growled. It would have been fine if the battle in the Sword God Pagoda was sealed off, but he knew that this battle had already been reflected on the pagoda mirror. He had already lost all his face. Kill you? No, I wouldn't dare. Yi Xian smiled evilly and shook his head. Another crisp sound rang out. This time, he was going to treat Jiang Wenyue like how he treated Jiang Tianqing. Rip, rip, rip. The earth spikes pierced into Jiang Wenyue's body, and he couldn't help but roar in pain. Bastard, go to hell. Suddenly, Jiang Wenyue shouted. In the next moment, Yi Xian felt a powerful energy coming down on him from above. Jiang Wenyue had actually held back. But how could the scheming Yi Xian not have a backup plan? Boom! The 64 layers of pulsating guard blocked the majority of the Great Emperor's will, but Yi Xian was still heavily injured by Jiang Wenyue. Yi Xian spat out a mouthful of blood, but his injuries quickly healed. Empyrean Palace Master, do you still have a trump card? Yi Xian wiped the blood off and said slowly. The reason why he didn't dodge was to make one thing clear. Even if Jiang Wenyue launched a sneak attack, he wouldn't be able to kill him. Jiang Tianjin, are you watching? Yi Xian suddenly turned his head and said. However, just as he finished speaking, a voice rang out. Boom! Suddenly, a large door opened near the two of them. The 10th floor was cleared. What a pity! Yi Xian shook his head helplessly. It seemed that the other palace masters of the Sword God Pagoda had judged his victory. Immediately, he removed the dual space and passed through the large door. What entered his eyes were some gorgeous buildings, and there were already quite a few people standing in front of him. Yi Xian, you did it. Duanmu Yun walked over quickly with a look of surprise. Senior Duanmu. Yi Xian greeted respectfully. Good, that's great. I didn't expect you to succeed on your first try. You're only a level 9 challenger, but you defeated Jiang Wenyue. That's great. Duanmu Yun praised repeatedly. He wanted Yi Xian to try the first 9 floors first, but he didn't expect Yi Xian to clear the first 9 floors in less than a second. In the end, he even defeated Jiang Wenyue, who was an empty god realm great emperor. Senior, now. Yi Xian glanced at the group of Sword God Pagoda disciples behind Duanmu Yun. Don't worry. You're the first genius to clear the Sword God Pagoda in decades. Soon, all the palace masters of the Sword God Pagoda will gather here. Duanmu Yun replied with a smile. How many palace masters are there in the Sword God Pagoda? Yi Xian asked curiously. Duanmu Yun answered without thinking. There are only 6 palace masters now. They are Tai, Wu Shuang, Siyu, Lu Yang, Qi Yi, and Jiutian. San Yuan, Wu Xiang, and Ba Huang have all fallen. Only 6, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. However, he understood that there were definitely more than just these few void god realm emperors in the Sword God Palace. For example, even though the old 9th Heaven Sword God had abdicated, he was only living in seclusion. Duanmu Yin glanced at Yi Xian and said, however, there aren't many void god realm great emperors in the Sword God Pagoda. Most of them have left for the main continent. The main continent? Yi Xian raised his eyebrows. He was currently in the Eastern continent, but he heard that the other regions of the Blood Rock continent seemed to have merged into the main continent. This news came from the Sword God Pagoda. Therefore, the people of the Sword God Pagoda naturally went to the main continent, and their route to the main continent should be through the chaotic astral ocean. After all, they had an agreement with old immortal Tianju. Void God realm great emperors weren't allowed to enter the vast wilderness. The Sword God Pagoda also has a stronghold in the main continent, but the main continent is much stronger than the Eastern continent. Our Eastern continent has been isolated from the vast wilderness for so many years, and we are already derailed. The difference in strength is too great. As for why the people from the main continent can't come over, it should be because of old immortal Tianju. Duanmu Yun nodded. At this moment, a figure suddenly swept over. Palace Master Chia. This kid is really heaven-defying. Do you want him? If not, Give him to me. Liu Yang Sword God smiled as he moved to Yi Xian's side. Earlier, he was still hesitating if he should take the risk of angering Zhou Tian's Sword God by accepting Yi Xian. Now, he had already made his decision. Accept. Palace Master Liu Yang, don't be anxious. Duan Muyun said with a smile. How can I not be anxious? He is only a level 9 king, but he defeated the Emptiness God realm Great Emperor Zhou Tian's Sword God. If he breaks through to the Empty God realm, he will definitely be able to challenge those of a higher rank. Liu Yang Sword God looked excited. Chapter 702. The 6 Yang Sword God had lived for a few decades and had seen people with dual attributes. However, this was the first time he had seen a genius who had comprehended both gravity space and wind space at the same time. When these two spaces were combined, they were invincible. If they were combined with the Great Emperor's will, they would be even more powerful. Just as the 6 Yang Sword God's voice sounded, Jiang Wenyue slowly walked out. Jiang Tianjin quickly rushed over and glared fiercely at Yi Xian. Hey, this guy's here too. Yi Xian did not pay much attention to Jiang Tianjin earlier. Who would have thought that his enemy, Jiang Tianjin, would be here too? It seemed that he'd also seen the scene of his father being ravaged by Yi Xian. Awesome. Trash. I hate that I didn't burn you to ashes back then. Jiang Tianjin gritted his teeth and said, What a pity. Yi Xian grinned. Even Jiang Wenyue couldn't do anything to him. What could Jiang Tianjin do? However, he did not know that Jiang Tianjin had already refined the Third Order Great Emperor's will. He was much stronger than Jiang Wenyue. When Duan Muyun saw Jiang Tianjin, he raised his eyebrows and said in a low voice, Yi Xian, I want to tell you something. Jiang Tianjin previously obtained the will of the Great Emperor bestowed by the Ninth Heaven Sword God and has already broken through to the 3rd stage of the Great Emperor. He's even stronger than me. What? This news was too bad for Yi Xian. Yi Xian thought that Jiang Tianjin was still a Void God Realm King. That way, he could easily send him flying. Who would have thought that Jiang Tianjin was already a 3rd Order Great Emperor? Refining the Great Emperor's will seems to be weaker than condensing it yourself. Yi Xian replied softly. That's right, but it's still stronger than a 2nd Order Great Emperor. Duan Muyun nodded. Yi Xian did not take it to heart. He thought to himself, TSK, wait until I become an emperor. I'll be able to crush you anytime I want. Refining the Great Emperor's will was much weaker than condensing it himself. As long as he broke through, he would definitely be able to send Jiang Tianjin flying. Right at this time, another figure appeared. It was an old woman with a walking stick in her hand. 4th Moon Palace Lord. Duan Muyun nodded slightly in greeting. The 4 Moons Sword God glanced at him before his gaze finally landed on Jiang Wenyue, who was covered in blood. He said, 9 Heavens Palace Master, you actually lost to a 9th grade king tier? Just now, Duan Muyun had sent someone to inform her, so she already knew about this matter. At this moment, Jiang Wenyue wished he could find a hole to hide in. He was so ashamed that he couldn't speak. Yi Xian's gaze also landed on the April Moon Palace Master, because the April Moon Palace Master was the master of his mother, Jiang Xinyan. Ha ha, for Moon's Palace Master, would you believe me if I said that this brat is Jiang Xinyan's son? Liu Yang Sword God laughed. What? Son? The 4 Moons Sword God was stunned. Among her disciples, Jiang Xinyan had the highest aptitude. She had already begun to condense the will of a great emperor. Who would have thought that Yi Xian was actually Jiang Xinyan's son? That's right. Yi Xian is Jiang Xinyan and Yi Chang's son. Duan Muyun nodded. This time, the 4 Moon Sword God believed it. However, she didn't say anything else. Instead, she carefully sized up Yi Xian with her old eyes. Now, there were already 4 palace masters in the Sword God Palace. Only Tai Sword God was left. Whoosh! Another figure flew over. However, this time, it wasn't Tai Sword God. It was his son, Wu Shang. Huh, you look like Wu Shang. Liu Yang Sword God looked at him in surprise. I obtained a bit of the Fountain of Youth a while ago. Wu Shang answered honestly. He originally looked like a middle-aged man, but now he looked like he was in his 30s. Liu Yang Sword God said enviously, Fountain of Youth. I'm so envious. I've already forgotten what I looked like when I was young. Not only that, but even the four-moon sword god was the same. Which woman didn't want to stay young forever? However, this wasn't the time to talk about this. Father is in seclusion, so he can't come personally. Wuxiang said. Tai Sword God was the strongest person in the Sword God Palace. He was in seclusion all year round. Even his son, Wuxiang, only saw him a few times in a year. At most, he would listen to his voice. No one had any objections to Wuxiang taking over. All right, Yi Xian has passed the test and is qualified to join the Sword God Palace. I wonder which palace master wants to take him as a disciple. Wuxiang finished speaking and looked around. I want him, Liu Yang's sword god immediately said. Although Yi Xian defeated Jiang Wenyue, Liu Yang's sword god wasn't weak either. It wouldn't be a problem for him to kill Jiang Wenyue. He was more than enough to teach Yi Xian. As for Duanmu Yun, after fusing with the sword god's bloodline, he felt that he was only slightly stronger than Jiang Wenyue. Therefore, he felt that he wasn't qualified to be Yi Xian's master. Palace Master Liu Yang, are you sure? Four Moons sword god asked with a frown. Palace Master Liu Yang, don't use your old flame to pressure me. I want this brat. Liu Yang sword god said with a firm expression. Yi Xian was stunned. He guessed that the Palace Master Liu Yang sword god's old flame was the Empyrean Palace Master. He looked around and found that everyone was calm. It seemed that this wasn't a secret. Indeed, Jiang Xinyan could become the Four Moons sword god's disciple because he and Jiang Wenyue's master were husband and wife. How dare you? Four Moons sword god snorted coldly. Yi Xian was extremely grateful to the Six Yang sword god. Although this was the first time he'd seen the Six Yang sword god, he felt as if they were old friends. Based on his intuition, this old man was definitely a good person. Anyone else? Wuxiang looked at Duanmu Yun and the others. Four Moon sword god also had his eyes on Yi Xian. However, he had heard about the Jiang family. If he accepted Yi Xian, it would be troublesome. Duanmu Yun wasn't qualified, and it was even more impossible for Jiang Wenyue to be defeated by Yi Xian. The Sword God Palace disciples present all understood that Yi Xian was going to become Liu Yang, Sword God's disciple. Being in the Sword God Palace didn't mean that they were all personal disciples of the Palace Master. Most of them were just in-name disciples. However, with Yi Xian's talent, he was definitely going to be a personal disciple. However, just as Liu Yang Sword God was waiting for Wuxiang to announce, Wuxiang suddenly said, Palace Master Liu Yang, my apologies. After my father found out about this, he also wanted to accept a disciple. When the surrounding people heard this, they were shocked. Didn't the Tai Palace Master never accept personal disciples? Even the in-name disciples were taught by Wuxiang and the others. However, this wasn't surprising. A genius like Yi Xian was rare. Although someone had passed the Sword God Pagoda a few decades ago, the Guardian of the 10th level was only a level 9 king. The Tai Palace Master accepting a disciple was unexpected, but within reason. Wuxiang, you can't do this. Liu Yang's sword god wanted to cry, but had no tears. Chapter 703. Sorry, this is my father's idea, Wuxiang said honestly. Sai, let's leave the choice to this kid. Even if the opponent is the Tai Palace Master, I can't give up. Liu Yang's gaze fell on Yi Xian. Everyone's gaze also fell on Yi Xian. Yi Xian had already passed the Sword God Pagoda and was qualified to choose between Tai Palace and Liu Yang Palace. However, he wasn't sure because he knew too little about the Sword God Pagoda. He turned to Duanmu Yun, hoping for her opinion. Duanmu Yun was startled and suddenly thought, Wuxiang, Yi Xian has obtained the inheritance of 8 Desolation Sword God. Now that he has passed the Sword God Pagoda, why don't he join 8 Desolation Palace? 8 Desolation Palace currently has no palace master. Wuxiang also paused when he heard this suggestion. Both Tai Sword God and Liu Yang Sword God had the intention to accept disciples, but Yi Xian could also choose Sanyuan Palace, Wuxiang Palace, or 8 Desolation Palace. Indeed, I'm only representing my father. I respect Yi Xian's choice. Wuxiang nodded. Yi Xian was slightly surprised when he heard this. Yi Chong obtained the inheritance of 8 Desolation Great Emperor, but left the most important 8 Desolation Sword Dam. It would be better if he became the palace master of 8 Desolation Palace. No, but right at this moment, someone suddenly shouted. Everyone turned to look and found that the person who spoke was Jiang Tianjin. Jiang Tianjin also had his eyes on the position of 8 Desolation Palace Master, but he was still a member of 9 Heavens Palace. If Yi Xian joined 8 Desolation Palace, he would be at a disadvantage. Jiang Tianjin, what do you think? Wu Shang asked. Jiang Tianjin was a loss for words. He really didn't have any reason to stop Yi Xian from joining 8 Desolation Palace. However, if Yi Xian joined Tai Palace, then there would be many uncertain factors in the future. It would be even more difficult to deal with than Yi Xian joining 8 Desolation Palace. Therefore, Jiang Tianjin retreated. Wu Shang looked at him and said, Jiang Tianjin, I know you are applying to be the 8 Desolation Palace's palace master, but you are still a member of 9 Heavens Palace. However, the positions of 3 Yuan, 5 Xiang, and 8 Huang Palace Master have been vacant for many years. How about this? After a period of time, we will begin to fight for the positions of these 3 Palace Master. What? Everyone present was stunned. Fighting for the positions of 3 Palace Masters at once? In fact, many people had suggested this before, but they were all rejected by the Tai Sword deity. But now, they were competing for 3 Palace Lords at once. Were there so many candidates? Jiang Tianjin was a strong candidate. If Yi Xian could break through to the Void God realm, he would be very powerful too. However, other than the 2 of them, there was no one else who could take out the position. Could it be that another Void God realm king's disciple would take up the position? Wu Shang was stronger than Jiang Tianjin, but he refused the position of Palace Lord. The reason why Duan Muyun and Jiang Wenyue could become Palace Lords was because of their master. As for the 4 Moon Sword deity and 6 Sun Sword deity, they were also prepared to give up their positions. However, it was not up to these Void God realm kings to fight for the position. After all, the 6 Sun Sword deity and 7 Night Sword deity also had sons, but they were not in the Eastern continent. Hearing this, Jiang Tianjin's eyes lit up. In fact, he still had 2 choices, the 3 Yuan and 5 Xiang, but he was going to fight for the 8 Huang Palace. As for why, it was needless to say. Humph, the position of 8 Huang Palace Master is mine. Yi Xian glanced at Jiang Tianjin and snorted coldly in his heart. At this time, Wu Shang reminded, Yi Xian, if you join our Tai Palace, you can also fight for the position of Palace Master. Jiang Tianjin's face fell, and he had a bad premonition in his heart. If Yi Xian joined the 8 Huang Palace, he would not be afraid of anyone. After all, the Tai Sword deity was the leader of the Sword God Palace, and his strength was much stronger than the 9 Heaven Sword deity. All right, Yi Xian didn't even think as he directly agreed. He thought that he could only fight for the position of Palace Master by joining the 8 Huang Palace. He did not expect that he could also fight for the position of Palace Master from other palaces. When Jiang Tianjin and Jiang Wenyue heard Yi Xian's reply, they looked at each other. Things were going to be troublesome. However, at this moment, huff, the entire Sword God Palace was suddenly covered by a strange energy, and a strong wind blew. Wu Shang, 6 Yang Sword deity, for Moon Sword deity, Duan Muyun, Jiang Wenyue, Jiang Tianjin, and the others' faces changed. The Emperor's intent is condensing. Someone has broken through to the Void God realm. 6 Yang Sword deity exclaimed. The disciples present were shocked. Who broke through to the Void God realm? It's in that direction. Let's go. Wu Shang and the others immediately turned and left, and Yi Xian quickly followed behind. Who would have thought that such a joyous occasion would happen? Yi Xian had just passed the Sword God Pagoda and joined the Tai Palace. Now, someone had broken through to the Void God realm. Wu Shang led the group in that direction. After flying for a while, they finally confirmed that they were at a place. 4 Moon Palace. Someone has broken through in the 4 Moon Palace. 6 Yang Sword deity raised his eyebrows. Yi Xian's heart trembled. His mother, Jiang Xinyan, seemed to be in the 4 Moon Palace. The group quickly landed in the 4 Moon Palace and rushed in. Along the way, There were also some female disciples of the Four Moon Palace rushing in. In the end, they all gathered in front of a small palace. This is Xinyan's residence. Four Moon Palace recognized it at a glance. After all, Jiang Xinyan was her proudest disciple. However, the others did not know who was living in the palace. At this moment, the emperor's intent had finished condensing. So strong. She has just broken through, but she has already condensed so much emperor's intent. Could it be Jiang Xinyan? Six Yang sword deity said. Hearing this, Jiang Wenyue was shocked. Jiang Xinyan was his biological sister. Of course, Yi Xian was the most shocked. He did not expect that the one who had broken through this time was his biological mother. This was not the main point. The main point was that he might be able to see his biological mother soon. Rumble. Suddenly, the door of the small palace cracked open, and a beautiful woman in blue clothes walked out from it. Master, the lady was stunned when she saw so many people gathered in front of her residence. Xinyan, you have broken through? The Four Moon Palace master asked anxiously. Jiang Xinyan nodded solemnly and said, Master, I have broken through to the Void God realm. Can I leave the Four Moon Palace now? The Four Moon Palace master paused. Previously, she had restricted Jiang Xinyan's movements. However, Jiang Xinyan still found out about Yi Chong, causing her to have a heart demon. She did not expect Jiang Xinyan to break through her heart demon and become a Void God Realm Great Emperor. Chapter 704. Haha, Jiang Xinyan, come here. Let me introduce you to someone. I'm sure you'll want to meet him. Jiang Xinyan turned around and saw her brother Jiang Wenyue and Jiang Tianjin. However, the sixth sun sword god wasn't referring to them. He was referring to a young man. When Jiang Xinyan saw the young man's face clearly, her body trembled violently. This young man was Yi Xian. Even if Jiang Wenyue didn't rely on his bloodline to recognize Yi Xian, Jiang Xinyan, as Yi Xian's birth mother, had a bloodline connection with him. Thus, Jiang Xinyan also recognized him. You. Jiang Xinyan was so shocked that she couldn't speak. Yi Xian hurried forward and said, Yi Xian greets mother. Although she had guessed it, Jiang Xinyan couldn't help but cry when she heard Yi Xian's words. She quickly walked forward and caressed Yi Xian's determined face. When Jiang Xinyan's hand touched Yi Xian's skin, their bloodline connection was activated to the maximum. Child, you've worked hard all these years, Jiang Xinyan said with a loving expression. When Yi Xian was still an infant, Yi Chong brought him back to the Yi family. He had never seen Jiang Xinyan. When he was a few years old, Yi Chong left the Yi family and went to the Bloodcliff continent. Yi Xian could almost be considered an orphan. However, today, the mother and son were finally reunited. Mother, father is below the Sword God Pagoda. Yi Xian calmed down and said slowly. All right, let's go. Jiang Xinyan grabbed Yi Xian's hand and left the Four Moon Palace. This time, the Four Moon Sword God couldn't stop them. After all, Jiang Xinyan had broken through to the Void God realm. Damn it! Jiang Wenyue cursed in his heart. He could only watch as Yi Xian and Jiang Xinyan left. TSK, I'll go take a look too. The sixth sun sword god chuckled and chased after them. Duanmu Yin also followed. The four of them quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. At the same time, below the sword god pagoda, Yi Xian passed. Yi Chong looked at the crystal on the 10th floor of the sword god pagoda and was stunned. He stood there stupefied. Not only that, but the two guards of the Sword God Pagoda were also stunned. They'd guarded the Sword God Pagoda for so many years, yet this was the first time they'd seen someone pass through the Sword God Pagoda. Could it be that there was a problem with the pagoda? At this time, the three people who looked up suddenly saw several figures descending rapidly. Yi Xian and Xinyan? When Yi Chong saw who it was, Yi was stunned. Why had he attacked the Sword God Pagoda 1,000 times? Wasn't it because he wanted to see Xinyan? Yi. Jiang Xinyan threw herself into Yi Chong's arms. After more than 20 years, they finally met again. This too, Yi did a twos to be. Yinbi at BC, Xian, this was the first time Yi Xian had seen a man who attacked the Sword God Pagoda 1,000 times in order to see his wife. Every time he was heavily injured, he wouldn't give up. Haha, great, this is great. I've lived for so many years. My state of mind is incomparable to that of an ordinary person. But why do I feel like crying? The six-sun sword god wiped the corners of his eyes. Duamuyin also smiled and said to Yi Xian, "Your parents will be proud of you." Family reunion. One of Yi Xian's wishes had been fulfilled. Not only that, but Yi Chang's inner demon was also instantly eliminated. At that moment, a strange energy suddenly condensed in the surroundings. The six-sun sword god and Duanmu Yin looked at each other. The former exclaimed, "The great emperor's intent is condensing." Yi Chong, you broke through? After the six-sun sword god's reminder, Yi Chong suddenly realized that his body's environment had changed greatly due to his excitement. The shackles that had blocked him for so many years had disappeared. Void God Realm Great Emperor. Quick, concentrate on condensing the Great Emperor's intent. Duanmu Yin also hurriedly said. After breaking through to the Void God Realm Great Emperor, one could condense the Great Emperor's intent. This was a crucial moment. When Xianxia broke through, the amount of Great Emperor's intent that she condensed was much more than ordinary Great Emperors. It was much more than when Duanmu Yin and Jiang Wenyue broke through. Yi Chang's aptitude was not weak either. This was a good opportunity to consolidate his cultivation. The three of us will protect you. The six-sun sword god stood aside, and Jiang Xinyan also retreated. At that moment, there were a total of 3 void god realm great emperors here. Although they could not help much, it was better than Yi Chong condensing the great emperor's intent alone. Yi Xian had also retreated. He did not dare to make any noise for fear of affecting Yi Chong. With the help of 3 void god realm great emperors, Yi Chong's cultivation level continued to rise. He condensed it so quickly. It's much faster than me in the past. The six-sun sword god was very shocked. He felt that Yi Chong might be higher than Jiang Xinyan this time. Whoosh whoosh. The wind howled, and only the sound of sand and stones could be heard. At the same time, Wu Shang and the others also stood in the air and watched. With a thought, Yi Chong became a great emperor. Yi Chong's aptitude was not any weaker than them. Amazing. He might be able to break through to the second stage of the great emperor realm. Wu Shang said softly. What? Behind him, Jiang Wenyue, Jiang Tianjin, and the others were shocked. A grade 9 king directly broke through to the second stage of the great emperor realm. Jiang Wenyue and his son did not feel good. One of them had the guidance of an expert, while the other had directly refined the third stage of the great emperor realm. If they were compared to Yi Chong, they were not worth mentioning. At that moment, Yi Chong's great emperor's intent had already surpassed the average void god realm great emperor realm, and it was still rising. Finally, after a minute, the wind stopped. Second stage of the great emperor realm. The six-sun sword god exclaimed. Yi Chong actually broke through from grade 9 king to the second stage of the great emperor realm. This was something that had never happened in 1,000 years. Yi Chong opened his eyes and felt the changes in his body. His great emperor's intent was very strong. It had surpassed Jiang Xinyan, Jiang Wenyue, and Duanmu Yun. He was indeed at the standard of a second stage great emperor realm. Congratulations, father. Yi Xian hurriedly went up to him. Congratulations, congratulations. The six-sun sword god said happily. In his heart, he was amazed by this pair of father and son. Although Yi Xian had joined the Tai Palace, he had already built a good relationship with Yi Xian and his son. In the future, Yi Xian and his son's achievements would not be lower than his. This is a good thing. Many thanks for senior's help. Yi Chong hurriedly cupped his fists. Jiang Xinyan and Duanmu Yun were only at the first stage of the Great Emperor Realm. The reason why he could break through to the second stage of the Great Emperor Realm was mainly because of the six-sun sword god. Haha, you're too polite. The six-sun sword god smiled and waved his hand. Yi Xian was able to defeat the Void God Realm Great Emperor Jiang Wenyue as a grade 9 king. His father, Yi Chong, had broken through to the second stage of the Great Emperor Realm. Now it was better to build a good relationship with them. Chapter 705. At that moment, Wu Shang and the others landed as well. Wu Shang's gaze fell on Yi Chong as he said, Yi Chong, I hereby invite you to join Sword God's palace. You can choose from Tai, Trinity, 5 Xiangs, or 8 Desolation. Wu Shang's words shocked everyone present. Trinity, 5 Xiangs, and 8 Desolation were currently without a palace master. If Yi Cheng were to join them, he would be able to secure the position of palace master. Wu Shang, this, Jiang Wenyue quickly spoke. He was only able to become the palace master because of a good master, so he felt that it was unfair. However, Yi Cheng immediately interrupted. I choose 8 Desolation. The reason why he was able to rise was because of the inheritance of 8 Desolation, Sword God. Hence, he naturally had to choose 8 Desolation Palace. There was no doubt about it. All right, from now on, you'll be the palace master of 8 Desolation Palace. Wu Shang said directly. Boom. Everyone present was shocked. Yi Cheng had just joined Sword God's palace, and he was immediately appointed as the palace master of 8 Desolation Palace. He was on equal footing with Jiang Wenyue. It was the first time in 100 years that this had happened. Wu Shang, this is against the rules. 4 Moon Sword God stood out. The appointment of a palace master must be convincing, and more than half of the palace masters must agree. All right, I'll represent my father. We'll decide on the spot. Wu Shang nodded. However, the result was the same. Wu Shang represented Tai Palace, Duanmu Yun represented Xie Palace, and Lu Yang Sword God represented Lu Yang Palace. If the 3 of them agreed, it would be more than half of the palace masters. The palace masters of Trinity, 5 Xiangs, and 8 Desolation Palace had fallen. Only Unparalleled Palace was left. However, the Unparalleled Palace Master was not present. I agree. Lu Yang Sword God immediately said. I agree too. Duanmu Yin followed. As long as Wu Shang agreed, Yi Cheng would be the palace master of 8 Desolation Palace. However, before Wu Shang could speak, 4 Moon Sword God snorted coldly. Forget it. Xinyan, you'll be the palace master of 4 Moon's palace from now on. Wu Shang was the one who invited Yi Cheng to join Sword God's palace master. He was the one who suggested that Yi Cheng be the palace master of 8 Desolation Palace. How could he disagree? Wu Shang Xinyan's a sword god. In this way, Yi Cheng had 4 votes and was firmly seated in the position of 8 Desolation Palace Master. If Yi Cheng hadn't broken through yet, she could have helped, but now that both Yi Xian and Jiang Xinyan had broken through, she didn't want to get involved in this mess. The conflict between the Jiang and Yi families should be left to their own devices. Thank you, Master. Jiang Xinyan hurriedly expressed her gratitude. Jiang Wenyue, who was covered in blood, had already stabilized his injuries and changed into a new set of clothes. After seeing this scene, he could only sigh and say, "Congratulations, little sister." He didn't want to get involved anymore, so he turned around and left. Thank you, big brother. Jiang Xinyan thanked him again. As for Jiang Tianjin, he glared fiercely at Yi Xian before leaving with Jiang Wenyue. The matter had finally come to an end. Haha, Yi Cheng, congratulations. Your family is about to occupy the Sword God's palace, Sword God Lu Yang said with a smile. Jiang Xinyan was now the palace master of 4 Moon Palace, while Yi Cheng was the palace master of 8 Desolation Palace. Duanmu Yun and Sword God Lu Yang of 7 Night Palace were on good terms with their family. Not only that, but Yi Xian had also become a disciple of Tai Palace. It wouldn't be a problem for him to fight for the position of palace master in the future. Therefore, almost all the members of Sword God's palace were related to their family. It was amazing. Come, let's go to my cave abode, Duanmu Yun said with a smile when she saw that the matter had come to an end. Today was a great day. Yi Xian first reunited with his father, then he saw his mother. Finally, his family was reunited. In addition, Jiang Xinyan and Yi Cheng had also broken through to the Void God Realm Great Emperor Realm. The latter had even jumped 2 levels. It was great news. Their family chatted for the whole day, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. However, on the second day, someone came to visit Duanmu Yun's cave abode. It was Wu Shang. Yi Xian, you have joined Tai Palace. I will accept you as my disciple on behalf of my master. In a few days, we will leave for the main continent. Do you want to stay in Sword God's palace or come with us? Wuxiang asked directly after seeing Yi Xian. Go to the main continent. Yi Xian raised his eyebrows. He was now stuck at level 9 challenger. Although he could ask his parents for something to break through, he still felt that it was better to do it himself. Now that the monsters of the Desolation Wilderness are restricted by old immortal Tianju, we can directly cross the Desolation Wilderness and reach the main continent. I think that is your stage. Wuxiang continued. Okay. Yi Xian nodded without thinking. Whether it was the Eastern Continent or the chaotic Astral Ocean, there was no place for him. The levels here were too low. His cultivation was different from others. The possibility of him leveling up was too small. In that case, let's meet at the Sword God Pagoda tomorrow morning. Also, Jiang Tianjin will be in the team this time. Wuxiang left after saying that. Yi Xian raised his eyebrows. Now that Jiang Wenyue was no longer a threat to him, Jiang Tianjin was already a third-stage Great Emperor. Although he had refined other Great Emperor's will, he was still stronger than a second-stage Great Emperor. If he wanted to fight against Jiang Tianjin, he would have to at least break through to the Void God Realm. Xian that Jiang Tianjin has a strange personality. You have to be careful this time. Jiang Xinyan reminded. I will. Yi Xian nodded. He knew that Jiang Tianjin had two personalities. One was cold and the other was evil. The one that he had seen recently was the cold one. The evil one that liked to torture people had never appeared before. This time, he would be heading to the main continent with Wuxiang. There might be danger on the way, so he had to be careful of Jiang Tianjin, even though Jiang Tianjin was his cousin. Soon it was time. Yi Xian left Duanmu Yun's cave dwelling and headed to the Sword God Pagoda. At this time, many people had already gathered at the Sword God Pagoda. They were not weak. Almost all of them were level 8 kings. Some were even level 9 kings. Wuxiang, Jiang Tianjin. Yi Xian saw the two of them at first glance. Yi Xian knew that Wuxiang was a third-stage Great Emperor. However, he was much stronger than Jiang Tianjin. After all, Wuxiang had cultivated on his own. On the other hand, Jiang Tianjin had refined the Great Emperor's will to break through to the third-stage Great Emperor realm. Yi Xian, I will lead the team this time. Listen to my orders. Wuxiang said to Yi Xian. Yes, senior brother Wuxiang. Yi Xian nodded. Ever since Yi Xian arrived, Jiang Tianjin had revealed an evil smile. It seemed that Jiang Tianjin was being controlled by his evil personality. Compared to his cold personality, Jiang Tianjin's evil personality was more terrifying. Don't be anxious. Wait until I break through to the Void God Realm. I will torture you until you call me Father. Yi Xian sneered in his heart. Chapter 706. All right, everyone is here. Let's set off early. Wuxiang glanced at Yi Xian and Jiang Tianjin before leaping into the air. There were 10 disciples from Sword God Palace who were between 25 and 35 years old, accompanying the three of them to the main continent. In the Eastern Continent, they couldn't get any good experience and could only cultivate in seclusion. On the main continent, there were many Void God Realm Great Emperors and even Supremes. That was the real stage. Wuxiang flew to the west, and the others followed him. When the Eastern Continent was isolated from the world, the layout of the Bloodcliff continent had changed. There is a death desert behind the Great Wilderness. We have to cross this death desert to reach the Sunflame Holy Court. Wuxiang explained as he flew. Senior brother Wuxiang, is the Sunflame Holy Court strong? A 9th-grade king asked. Strong. Those who could be called sacred dynasties all have supreme experts. Wuxiang nodded and said, when the Great Wilderness was blocked, we flew all the way from the chaotic Astral Ocean. However, we met the Sunflame Holy Court first, so we established a small force in the Sunflame Holy Court. Palace Master Wuxuang and the old Palace Masters are in charge. Supremes. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Supremes were the realms after the Void God Realm Great Emperor. It was said that old immortal Tianju was also a Supremes. Do Supremes also use ultimacy and Great Emperor intent? Someone asked. Wuxiang shook his head and said, no. To become a Supremes, one has to seal the Great Emperor intent and form the Supreme's golden body. The Supreme's golden body is hard to hurt. Even 109th grade great emperors can't hurt it. So strong? Everyone was shocked. Yixian was the same. Hundreds of 9th grade great emperors couldn't hurt the Supreme's golden body. What kind of attack would it take? Senior brother Wuxiang, how do Supremes fight? The Void God realm relies on the profound meaning. Once you reach the sovereign realm, you have to cultivate all kinds of intents, such as sword intents, blade intents, and so on. Only an attack that incorporates the sword intents can hurt the sovereign golden body. After Wuxiang finished speaking, he glanced at Yixian from the corner of his eye and said, "A senior of my sword god palace comprehended sword intent when he was of the nihility god realm. Although it was only an incomplete sword intent, it still increased his strength by more than 10 times. In the end, he died because of his old injuries." Upon hearing this, Yixian paused. He noticed Wuxiang's gaze. Could it be that Wuxiang is talking about sword god Bahuang? The sword intent seed in my Devourer space was left behind by sword god Bahuang? Yixian was shocked. A void god, realm, great emperor, comprehended sword intent. This was enough to be proud of. However, not many people knew about this secret. However, Yixian was shocked just now. Coupled with his strange expression, Jiang Tianjin peeked at him. Senior brother Wuxiang. Who is that, senior? Jiang Tianjin asked curiously. You don't need to know. Wuxiang turned around and said, Yixian, you have the gravity space and the wind space. Help us speed up. Yixian was pulled back to reality by this sentence. He nodded and said, okay. In the next moment, the 12 of them felt two forces pushing them forward. However, only Jiang Tianjin did not. TSK Tisk. Jiang Tianjin laughed strangely in his heart. He did not care. His speed was not slower than Yixian. The latter's speed was only for the Sword God Palace disciples. Soon, the 13-man team crossed the Great Desolate Plains. Void God Realm Great Emperors were not allowed to enter the Great Wilderness. However, they could now, so they soon arrived at the Desert of Death. Looking at the boundless desert in front of them, Wuxiang and the others stopped. There is a special formation in this Desert of Death. We can't fly. Even if we jump, we can only reach 100 meters. Therefore, we can only walk. Wuxiang explained. Senior brother Wuxiang, is there any danger in this Desert of Death? Someone asked. Yes, there are many. Wuxiang nodded and said, for example, the sand pits on the ground. Even kings would find it hard to climb out if they are accidentally sucked in. There are also some desert creatures, such as poisonous scorpions and poisonous snakes. Of course, the most dangerous thing is the desert storm. Even void, god, realm great emperors would not be able to escape unscathed. Everyone swallowed their saliva and took out their weapons. They were extremely alert. Yixian, you have the earth attribute. Create a passage. Wuxiang turned to Yixian and said, okay. Yixian walked in. In front of him, the sand in front of him was separated, and then a mud path that was several meters wide rose up. In this Desert of Death, the earth attribute had the highest survivability. However, Yixian frowned slightly. The sand in this Desert of Death was not ordinary sand. It's been a lot of effort to build this mud path. He took the lead and walked on the mud path. Immediately, he felt a strange pressure that prevented him from flying. Not only that, even the repulsive force and wind force were ineffective. Wuxiang also walked on a mud path. He patted Yixian's shoulder and said, it doesn't need to be so wide. 2 meters is enough. Yixian nodded in silence. Everyone continued to follow Wuxiang. This mud path brought them great convenience. They did not have to worry about stepping on sand pits or being ambushed by desert creatures. However, this Desert of Death did not lack void god realm great emperors. Even Wuxiang could not guarantee that he could leave this Desert of Death alive. Yixian built the mud bridge while being vigilant of his surroundings. He did not know why, but he had a strange premonition that something was about to happen. Be careful. I feel that something is wrong. Wuxiang reminded. He also felt that something was wrong, but he could not pinpoint what was wrong. However, he was a third-stage great emperor. With Jiang Tianjin beside him, he could deal with most of the problems. They advanced for a while. But in the end, Wuxiang could not help but stop. "Senior brother Wuxiang, what's wrong?" A sword god palace disciple asked curiously. "Be careful. I'll check the surroundings," Wuxiang said as he looked around. In the next moment, his great emperor will blasted a big hole 1,000 meters away. Boom! The sound was very loud. Sand and dust billowed, but there was nothing. Wuxiang paused for a moment, then quickly turned his head. Boom! Another big hole appeared, but in the next moment, an unfamiliar voice sounded. "Kill! Poof! Poof! Poof!" One figure after another leaped out of the sand. Desert bandits, be careful. Chapter 707. Although the Death Desert was dangerous, there were many trade routes that passed through here. Hence, there were desert bandits. These desert bandits were proficient in sand escape techniques and were very stealthy. Even Wuxiang, a stage 3 great emperor, did not discover them. He only felt that something was wrong. At this time, there were more than 20 desert bandits, more than a dozen B and B grade kings, and 3 empty god realm emperors. TSK, they are courting death. Jiang Tianjin smiled evilly. 3 empty god realm great emperors dared to find trouble with them? They were overestimating themselves. Jiang Tianjin and I will deal with the empty god realm great emperors. Yi Xian, you deal with the kings. Wuxiang immediately assigned the tasks. Understood. Yi Xian nodded and charged out. He was just a step away from breaking through to the empty god realm great emperor. If all of these kings were given to him, it would be enough. Go to hell. Yi Xian opened his eyes wide. He was extremely fast and merciless. The 10-sword god palace disciples also charged out, but compared to Yi Xian, they were as slow as snails. When Yi Xian finished off the 10 desert bandits, Wuxiang and Jiang Tianjin had already dealt with the 3 stage 1 great emperors. "They are tough, let's go." One of the desert bandits shouted and quickly burrowed into the ground. Yi Xian was just a step away from breaking through and was about to use ground shrink to give chase. However, he was stopped by Wuxiang at this moment. "Yi Xian, don't chase," Wuxiang hurriedly shouted. Hearing this, Yi Xian stopped and looked at Wuxiang in surprise. The Death Desert is more dangerous underground. Only experienced desert bandits can come and go as they please. If you go down recklessly, I am afraid you will die miserably, Wuxiang explained. In fact, Yi Xian also knew this, but he had the Tree of Life bloodline and was not afraid of it. However, since Wuxiang had already spoken, he would just forget about it. At this moment, he was only a step away from the empty god realm great emperor realm. No wonder senior brother Wuxiang felt that something was wrong. So it was because of these desert bandits. Fortunately, senior brother Wuxiang was here. Otherwise, we would be in deep trouble. The 10 disciples of the Sword God Palace were a little shocked. At the same time, they also felt the power of the main continent. A mere desert bandit actually had an empty god realm great emperor. This made them feel very pressured. We've killed more than 10 desert bandits, and 3 of them are the leaders of the desert bandits. The leader of the desert bandits will definitely come for revenge. You guys be careful. I only revealed the strength of a second-order great emperor just now, Wuxiang said to Yi Xian and the others. Yi Xian's eyes lit up. He wanted the other party to walk right into his trap. As long as these bandits dared to come again, he would be able to break through to the Nihility God stage. Let's go. The 10 of you have to be careful. Don't spread out. Wuxiang reminded them and continued forward. Although Yi Xian was only a level 9 king, his speed was faster than Jiang 1 US. Among those present, only Wuxiang and Jiang Tianjin were faster than him. Therefore, Wuxiang was not worried about Yi Xian. They continued forward for half an hour. Then, Wuxiang felt that something was wrong again. Clang, clang, clang. Wuxiang formed the golden rampart and protected everyone inside. Desert bandits, come out. With the previous example, Wuxiang was sure that there was a group of desert bandits around them, ready to ambush them. Sure enough, as Wuxiang expected, as soon as his voice fell, a number of figures rushed out of the sand. This time, there were more than 30 people, 5 of which were empty god realm great emperors. Where did you come from? How dare you kill my men? The desert bandit leader shouted coldly. The strong are respected. What's there to talk about? Wuxiang replied indifferently. The desert bandit leader squinted his eyes. How dare you? Although you have some background, my men are not that easy to kill. Go. The moment he gave the order, all the desert bandits launched an attack. The desert bandit leader was a level 3 Great Emperor. Among the other 4 leaders, there was 1 level 2 Great Emperor and 3 level 1 Great Emperors. As for the rest, they were all level 8 kings. Although they did not have the advantage in numbers, Wuxiang was the son of the Tai sword god. His strength was not comparable to those of the same level. At that moment, he stopped the desert bandit leader alone. As for the level 2 Great Emperor and 3 level 1 Great Emperors, he left them to Xianxia. The pressure is too much. Let's break through first. Yixian made a plan in his heart and immediately charged out. 36 overlapping shadows. Earth pulse 64 layers. One attack could kill a desert bandit. Yixian's attack speed was also fast. When Wuxiang and the desert bandit leader started fighting, he had already killed 5 level 9 kings. Almost there. He devoured the spoils of war, and his cultivation level continued to increase. Desert bandit, robber, pirate, mountain bandit. These were all professions with great wealth. However, they did not have many items on them. Otherwise, Yixian would have broken through to the empty god realm Great Emperor. The other 10 disciples of the Sword God Palace also gathered together to defend against the attacks of the desert bandits. However, no matter how many bandits there were, they could not withstand Yixian's massacre. That kid is strong. I will kill him, a level 1 Great Emperor bandit shouted. Originally, Jiang Tianjin could have stopped him. However, he purposely let the desert bandit pass. Humph, you want to kill me with such a small trick? Yixian snorted in his heart. With a double oppression, he killed a level 9 king bandit leader. He quickly flew over and caught the Qian Kun ring of the desert bandit leader. Ding! The host has broken through. The host is now a level 1 Great Emperor. When the system notification sounded out, the corners of Yixian's mouth couldn't help but curl up. He had finally broken through. At this moment, there was a strange energy in his mind. This was the Great Emperor's intent. The Great Emperor's intent could be merged with martial arts and ultimacies, greatly increasing the power. However, most people would need to form their own Great Emperor's intent to break through. However, Yixian had appeared out of nowhere. The strength of the Great Emperor's intent was similar to that of an ordinary person. Ding! The host has learned the 3rd move of the 8 Desolation sword skill, Sword of Annihilation. Sword of 8 Desolation, Sword of Shattering Stars, and Sword of Annihilation were the 3 ultimate skills of the 8 Desolation Emperor. Now, Yixian had learned all 3 of them. Before the level 1 Great Emperor bandit leader arrived, Yixian merged the Great Emperor's intent into the double space. Bang! 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 One by one, the desert bandits exploded. The double space, merged with the Great Emperor's intent, was extremely powerful. So strong, everyone present was shocked. The desert bandits thought that Yixian was a hidden void god realm Great Emperor. However, the people from the Sword God Palace knew that Yixian was just a level 9 king. Why would he suddenly have the Great Emperor's intent now? Kid die. At this moment, the level 1 Great Emperor bandit leader arrived. Chapter 708. Dual Space. Yixian glared at the first stage Great Emperor. 2 invisible forces trapped the first stage Great Emperor. Ugh! The first stage Great Emperor was trapped by the dual space, which was infused with the Great Emperor's will. It was so uncomfortable that he couldn't speak. However, this was the desert of death. Yixian's upward repulsive force and wind force were ineffective. Hence, the first stage Great Emperor quickly drilled into the sand. Bang! However, when he completely entered the sand, the pressure of the double space squeezed his head until it exploded. A first stage Great Emperor dead. At that moment, Yixian quickly rushed over and put away his universe ring. His strength once again skyrocketed. On the other side, the 10 disciples of the Sword God Palace were dealing with the 12 sand bandits. Wu Shang and Jiang Tianjin didn't feel much pressure and weren't at a disadvantage. However, Yi Xian wouldn't let go of this opportunity to increase his strength. If he could kill all the sand bandits, he would be able to suppress Jiang Tianjin. However, at this moment, rumble. Suddenly, an ominous premonition rose in everyone's heart. They turned around and saw a huge wave in the distance. When the desert bandits saw the source of this huge wave, their faces were filled with fear. Not good. It's the death sandstorm. Run. The sand bandit leader shouted and quickly retreated. He then drilled into the sand. Wu Shang didn't give chase because he understood that it wasn't the right time to do so. Quick, everyone gather here. Wu Shang hurriedly shouted. The 10 disciples of the Sword God Palace quickly gathered. They didn't dare to be negligent because they felt that the death sandstorm was no small matter. Even the Third Order Great Emperor Desert Bandit leader's face turned pale. What did these Ninth Order kings amount to? Yi Xian quickly opened up the sand. Let's go down. Wu Shang hurriedly shouted. The death sandstorm must be very dangerous to be able to make Wu Shang so frightened. Yi Xian didn't say anything and drilled into the sand. Then, Wu Shang and the others immediately followed and kept going down. Among them, only Yi Xian had the earth attribute. Although Wu Shang was a Third Order Great Emperor, he had the metal attribute and could not control the sand. Therefore, Yi Xian was much faster than him. The death sandstorm is the most dangerous thing in the death desert. Even I could die in it. Later on, I will build a golden wall. You guys should also focus on forming physical objects. Do not be swept away by the death sandstorm. Wu Shang shouted as he followed. He calculated the time and immediately formed a golden wall to envelop all of them. In the blink of an eye, the 13 of them were in a narrow space with 6 golden walls. Boom! All of a sudden, the 13 of them staggered. Soon after, they realized that they had been swept up by the sandstorm and were sent flying into the air. Quick, reinforce it! Wu Shang hurriedly reminded everyone when he saw that they were in a daze. Yi Xian reacted and quickly formed an earth wall. Just now, when he glanced at the sandstorm, it gave him the same feeling as Wind Blade's second-level death storm. However, its power was probably 10 times stronger than the death storm. If a human was swept up by the death sandstorm, they would probably be sliced to death by the wind blades. Even Void God Realm Great Emperors would not be able to survive. Kacha! 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 Although Wu Shang was a Third Order Great Emperor, his golden wall could not completely withstand the death sandstorm. At this time, there were already many gaps in the golden wall, and sand was continuously seeping in. We must hold on until the death sandstorm ends. Wu Shang shouted with a gloomy expression. The death sandstorm was very strong. Even Void God Realm Great Emperors could die. Although Wu Shang was a Third Order Great Emperor, he did not dare to guarantee that he could survive. He estimated that if he was in the death sandstorm, he would only have a 70% chance of survival. Jiang Tianjin had 50%, and Yi Xian had less than 30%. As for the 10 Sword God Palace disciples, there was almost no chance of survival. This was the death sandstorm that even the desert bandits were afraid of. Kacha! 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 Although everyone tried their best to repair the gap, they could not make ends meet. In less than 10 seconds, a large gap was cut off in Wu Shang's golden wall. Everyone looked at the gap and saw nothing but darkness. However, they could faintly smell the scent of blood. They did not know if the blood belonged to the desert bandits or the caravan. It's over. The golden wall cannot hold on any longer. Everyone follow me and charge out. Wu Shang shouted in the wind. He was fully armed and took the lead to charge out of the gap. Jiang Tianjin did not dare to say anything else and quickly followed behind. Yi Xian followed closely behind. However, the 10 disciples from the Sword God's palace were terrified. No, we can't. If we go out, we will definitely die. What should we do? Senior brother Wu Shang's golden wall is about to collapse. Even if we don't go out, we will still die. We will die anyway. Let's fight. A few Sword God Palace disciples rushed out. However, they could not fly in this place. They were instantly swept away by the death sandstorm. One of them even had half of his head cut off by sharp wind blade. Without the protection of the great emperor's will, they were like tofu in the death sandstorm. The others did not dare to go out after seeing their miserable state. They could only helplessly stay in Wu Shang's golden wall. Gotcha! Without Wu Shang's repair, the golden wall quickly collapsed. Soon after, the remaining Sword God Palace disciples were swept away by the death sandstorm. Their fates were left to fate. At this time, Yi Xian and Jiang Tianjin were constantly swept away by the death sandstorm under Wu Shang's lead. They kept failing, and even Wu Shang was injured. If the death sandstorm was outside, it would be easier to deal with it. However, this death sandstorm was in the death desert. It was impossible to fly in the death desert, so it was very dangerous. You two use the great emperor's will to protect me. I will open the way. Yi Xian used gravity and wind to help. Wu Shang roared loudly. His great emperor's will was the strongest, so it was best to use it to open the way. However, if it was used to open the way, his defense would be weaker. Therefore, he needed Yi Xian and Jiang Tianjin to work together. In the death desert, upward repulsion and wind were useless. However, downward repulsion was useful. Yi Xian and the other two formed a line and kept rushing out. However, the death sandstorm's wind was too strong. Even with the great emperor's will in the double space, they could only move forward slowly. After rushing for a full minute, they were still in the death sandstorm's inner circle. They had not even reached the outer circle. Chapter 709. Damn it! Wu Shang cursed angrily. He had already experienced the might of this sandstorm. In fact, he could have used his great emperor's will to protect himself and survive. However, if he did so, Yi Xian and Jiang Tianjin would be in trouble. Right at this moment, whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew. Jiang Tianjin, who was in the middle, was swept away by the sandstorm. What? Wu Shang was startled. Soon, he realized that Jiang Tianjin had used up a lot of his great emperor's will when fighting against the bandit leaders. Therefore, he had used it very carefully. And because of Jiang Tianjin's mistake, he was the first to be blown away. Yi Xian, if this continues, both of us will exhaust our great emperor's will. We can only give up and follow the direction of the sandstorm. That's the only way to survive. Wu Shang shouted. Understood. Yi Xian's face turned gloomy. Next, he used his great emperor's will to protect himself and stop the impact. Whoosh whoosh. The sandstorm of death swept him away as well. In the sandstorm, one had to follow the direction of the sandstorm. If one went against it, they would only die miserably. Fortunately, he had the dual space. His body was also of the wind attribute. Under the situation where he followed the wind, his survival ability was not lower than Wu Shang's. I can only leave it to fate. Yi Xian's face was gloomy as he followed the sandstorm. Next, he used his great emperor's will very carefully. Normally, he would use his Zhen Qi and Profound. Although his great emperor's will could recover quickly, he still had to be careful. Even if there were wind blades, as long as they did not injure his vitals, he would not defend and let the Tree of Life recover on its own. In the death sandstorm, it was pitch black. He could no longer see Wu Shang, and he had no idea where Jiang Tianjin had been swept away to. At this moment, he could not care so much. He could only protect himself. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sandstorm continued to spin and move, sweeping in countless sand and dust. Fortunately, Yi Xian's throbbing earth pulse had increased to 64 layers. As long as he merged his great emperor's will into the 64 layers, he would be able to block the fatal wind blades. Normally, he would only need to use the normal 64-layered pulsating guard. Another minute passed. In this 1 minute, Yi Xian had lost count of how many times he had followed the deadly sandstorm. Most people would feel dizzy, but he was full of energy. After all, he had stayed in Heian's gravitational space for a full 10 days. At this moment, Yi Xian frowned. He suddenly felt the death sandstorm slowing down. Was it about to stop? Immediately, his eyes lit up. It seemed that he should be able to survive. He just didn't know how the others would fare. Huff, huff. His intuition was right. The death sandstorm had indeed begun to weaken, and the wind blade attacks had also lessened. He continued to rotate with the death sandstorm at the same speed as the rotation speed. But in the next moment, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he hurriedly infused the Great Emperor's will into the 64 pulsatile guards. Boom! The death sandstorm suddenly exploded, and the powerful shockwave instantly sent Yi Xian flying. PFFF. Even with the Great Emperor's will infused into the 64 pulsatile guards, Yi Xian was still severely injured. His head buzzed, and he could only feel that his body was in a weightless state. His entire body was covered in sand. By the time Yi Xian reacted, he found himself in a sand pit. This sand pit was constantly swallowing him up. Not good. Yi Xian immediately woke up. He didn't even bother to wipe the blood off the corner of his mouth. He hurriedly used the profound meaning of ground shrink. In the death desert, the death sand pits were also very terrifying. This was because one couldn't fly here. If one accidentally fell into these death sand pits, the quicksand would constantly swallow one's body and bury one in the endless desert. If it was ordinary sand, ordinary martial artists could easily escape. However, this wasn't ordinary sand. Only Void God Realm Great Emperors, or those who had comprehended the profound meaning of ground shrink, could escape easily. Coincidentally, Yi Xian had both of them, so he escaped from the quicksand. I'm finally out. Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. His luck was really bad. It was his first time entering the Death Desert, and he actually encountered such a terrifying thing. He glanced at his current attire, which could only be described as appalling. After all, during the sandstorm of death, his arms and legs had been cut off several times, and even his waist had been cut off several times. Fortunately, he had the bloodline of the divine tree of life. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't have survived. I wonder how senior brother Wuxiang and the others are doing. Yi Xian looked around and didn't feel any powerful aura. He jumped up and looked around. There was only sand piles around him. There was no one. Let's look around first. Yi Xian changed into a clean set of clothes and started looking for survivors. Just now, he was sent flying by the super shockwave of the death sandstorm. However, the direction his feet were facing when he landed was the direction he flew from. Therefore, he quickly started searching. Even he was sent flying by the shockwave. It was the same for the others. However, it was still uncertain if they could survive. Yi Xian started to wander around. The Death Desert was filled with Earth attribute Yuan Qi. He directly raised a 1-meter wide dirt road and started searching. After searching for a while, he found a corpse first. However, it was the corpse of a desert bandit. The sand of the Death Desert has the effect of hiding aura. What a pity! Yi Xian shook his head helplessly. This desert bandit's corpse was only 1/3 complete. He didn't know where the yin and yang ring had flown to. If it had fallen into the sand pile, he wouldn't be able to find it. He continued to search. A few minutes later, he found a second corpse. This time, the corpse was someone he recognized. It was the corpse of a rank 8 martial king from the Sword God Palace. Even Wuxiang, a rank 3 great emperor, wasn't 100% sure that he could survive the death sandstorm. Yi Xian was lucky enough to survive. As for those who weren't void, god, realm, great emperors, they could only rely on luck. If there was one corpse, there would be a second one. A few minutes later, Yi Xian found a total of 4 corpses of the Sword God Palace's disciples. There were also a few corpses of desert bandits. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt a powerful aura. Void God Realm Great Emperor. He frowned because he didn't know if this Void God Realm Great Emperor was a desert bandit, Wuxiang, or Jiang Tianjin. Therefore, he hurriedly concealed his aura and escaped into the sand. The bandit leader who fought with Wuxiang earlier was also a rank 3 Great Emperor. His strength wasn't bad. If Yi Xian encountered him now, with his current realm, Yi Xian wouldn't be able to do anything to the bandit leader in a short time. He could only rely on guerrilla warfare. Chapter 710. However, when he saw the face of the empty god realm Great Emperor, he jumped out of the sand. Senior brother Wuxiang. Yi Xian hurriedly called out. The newcomer was not the desert bandit leader, but the son of the Tai sword god, Wuxiang. Junior brother Yi, I'm glad you're okay. Wuxiang ran over with a pale face. His white robe was stained with blood. The death sandstorm had brought him a lot of trouble. Although the metal defense that had merged with the Great Emperor's will was very strong, He had been swept away for a few minutes and consumed a lot of his great emperor's will. Senior brother Wuxiang, I saw 4 corpses along the way, Yixian hurriedly said. Wuxiang sighed. Don't blame yourself. This is the death sandstorm. It's too ferocious. Those below the Void God realm can only rely on luck. Even those experienced bandits couldn't escape. Let's search again and see if there are any survivors. All right. Yixian nodded. With the addition of Wuxiang, Yixian was no longer afraid of encountering the desert bandit leader. Instead, he hoped to encounter him. However, this group of desert bandits generally walked on the ground. At that time, Wuxiang only found those desert bandits with weaker strength. The two searched for a while, but did not find anything. Instead, they saw many corpses that seemed to belong to the desert caravan. Yixian, stop! Suddenly, Wuxiang shouted. Yixian paused and said, Senior brother Wuxiang, what's wrong? There's a very strong aura. It might be the desert bandit leaders. Wuxiang quickly squatted down and gently climbed to a sand dune. He poked his head out to take a look. There was a group of people in front of him. There were more than 10 desert bandits wearing white scarves and more than 10 people wearing different clothes. Wuxiang squinted and said, Jiang Tianjin is also caught. Yixian was startled. He looked over, and sure enough, Jiang Tianjin was also in the group. His body was stained with blood and seemed to be seriously injured. At the same time, there were also the desert bandit leader and 4 other leaders among the bandits. Among the others, there were 2 disciples of the Sword God Palace. The rest were strangers. Yixian had never seen them before. The bandit leader who fought with me just now was actually standing behind someone. It seems that the strength of the person in front is not to be underestimated. Wuxiang said in a low voice. At least a 3rd Order Great Emperor, Yixian understood Wuxiang's meaning. In this world, the strong were respected. For a 3rd Order Great Emperor to walk behind someone, it meant that the other party's status was higher than his. If it's just that desert bandit leader, I can deal with him alone. However, there's still a 3rd Order Great Emperor and several Void God Realm Great Emperors. The 2 of us are no match for them. Wuxiang shook his head. Although Yixian didn't want to save Jiang Tianjin, there were 2 disciples of Sword God Palace among the people held hostage by the bandits. One of them was from Bahuang Palace, so he couldn't just leave him in the lurch. Senior brother Wuxiang, what should we do now? Yixian turned around and asked. Wait, Wuxiang replied. Although these bandits can burrow into the ground, their captives can't. Therefore, they have to walk back to their nest. Then, should we launch a sneak attack and rescue them by force? Yixian asked. Yixian still frowned, but the bandits can just steal the Qiankuan ring. What's the point of capturing people? Throw them away and become slaves. Look at them. They're wearing a special kind of shackle that can restrict their use of true qi. Even Void God Realm Great Emperors won't be able to use their Great Emperor willpower if they're shackled. Wuxiang explained. Slaves. Yixian was shocked. Void God Realm Great Emperors were using them as slaves? What was that for? Slaves are popular in the Sun Flame Holy Dynasty. They will use a special method to carve the word slave on their faces, making them slaves for eternity. Even if you peel off their skin, when new skin grows, the word slave will still be engraved on their face. These slaves are usually bought by some family forces. They can be used as sparring partners or sent out to carry out missions. Wuxiang continued. Yixian's eyes suddenly lit up. He was fantasizing about carving the word slave on Jiang Tianjin's face. How cool would that be? However, there were 2 disciples of the Sword God Palace beside Jiang Tianjin. Hence, he couldn't just stand by and watch. Let's go. Follow them carefully. Don't be discovered. Wuxiang took the lead and followed them. Fortunately, they were in the Death Desert. There were countless sand dunes for them to hide in. In addition, the 2 of them concealed their auras. Hence, it was difficult for the bandits to discover them. The 2 of them followed behind the group of bandits and moved forward. After more than half an hour, the 2 of them suddenly saw the group of bandits jump into a huge sand pit. It seems that that's their nest. Let's wait for a while, Wuxiang said. Waiting for a while was to let the bandits lower their guard. After the group of bandits jumped in, the huge sand pit closed. It seemed that there was an Earth attribute king or great emperor controlling it. However, Yi Xian and Wu Shang had already memorized the location. Yi Xian, use Earth shrinking and bring me to investigate. Wu Shang turned around and said. Yi Xian nodded. Then, he brought Wu Shang into the sand and slowly approached. The huge sand pit was the main camp of the bandits. However, there were at least 2 third-stage great emperors inside. Hence, they had to be careful. The sand pit was a passageway that looked like a well. It was a kilometer deep. Yi Xian used Earth shrinking to rush to one side of the wall and broke a small hole. I heard that the bandits built a castle underground. This path should lead to that castle. Wu Shang poked his head out to take a look. He didn't see anyone, but we don't know where the captives are. Yi Xian replied, yes. Hence, we can't rescue them by force. Wu Shang nodded and said, otherwise, I'll lure the 2 third-stage great emperors away. You use Earth shrinking to investigate and then rescue them. This is the main camp of the bandits. They will check for danger from time to time. It's safer to use Earth shrinking here. In truth, Yi Xian wasn't afraid of the poisonous scorpions and snakes in the sand. After all, he had the bloodline of the divine tree of life. Senior brother Wu Shang, can you do it alone? Yi Xian asked. If it wasn't for the death sandstorm, that bandit leader would have been killed by me. It won't be a problem for me to hold back the 2 of them. With your strength, I estimate that you can fight against second-stage great emperors. However, this time, we're not going to clear out the bandits' nest. We're going to rescue them. As long as we rescue them, we'll meet at the place where we first met. Wu Shang explained his plan. All right, Chapter 711. Yi Xian did not want to save Jiang Tianjin, but with Wu Shang and 2 other disciples of Sword God Palace, he could not sit back and do nothing. Then you hide here. I will kill my way out. Remember, we are saving people, not wiping out a bandit nest. Wu Shang reminded him again. Senior brother Wu Shang, don't worry. Even if I can't win, escaping is not a problem. Yi Xian said confidently. Although these bandits were proficient in the earth-burrowing technique, how could they compare to a true earth-burrowing technique? Yi Xian's speed was several times faster than theirs. In that case, I will go, Wu Shang said and rushed out. As for Yi Xian, he quickly circled around to the other side of the well. How dare you bandits, come out and die, Wu Shang shouted as he leaped down. There were 2 desert bandits guarding the bottom of the well, but as soon as they reacted, they were killed without a single scratch. There was no hesitation at all. Wu Shang's voice was deafening, and the entire underground castle shook. When he landed, many bandits surrounded him. How dare you rush in? Who are you? One of the bandits asked in shock. Humph, you kidnapped my companion. Can't you recognize me? Wu Shang shouted and raised his sword. In the next moment, the bandit was cut in half. Not only that, but the other bandits were not spared either. Wu Shang was a 3rd-order great emperor. Even a 2nd-order great emperor would not be able to withstand a single blow from him. Only a 3rd-order great emperor could fight against him, and it was only a fight. Wu Shang's voice was very loud. Soon, the Void God Realm great emperor bandits would come out. Since they were all bandits, he would kill them one by one. The more bandits Wu Shang killed, the lower the chances of Yi Xian being discovered. At this moment, Yi Xian had already started to move. He used the earth-burrowing technique to travel through the walls. The bandit nest was quite big. Yi Xian first looked around to see if he could find the slaves that were about to be sold. Rumble! Just as he was shuttling through the bandit's lair, a loud noise came from outside. It seemed that Wu Shang was already fighting with the bandit leader. Yi Xian also hastened his footsteps. Now, he did not use ground shrink and directly entered. Coincidentally, 2 desert bandits passed by and saw him. Who's there? A desert bandit shouted. But in the next moment, he saw 2 cold flashes of light. Then, his head and that of the other bandit flew into the air. Yi Xian quickly chased after them and took their universe rings. Although Yi Xian's speed was fast, he had to come out to take a look every time. It wasn't as practical as using world walking. After all, Yi Xian's dexterity had advanced 4 times, and he could use double space acceleration. Thus, world walking was more useful than world walking in this situation. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something. Rather than looking for it himself, it would be more convenient to ask the desert bandits. Coincidentally, the second group of people he met after coming out was actually a Void God Stage Great Emperor Desert Bandit leader. "Kid, you're courting death," the bandit leader shouted and charged towards Yixian. However, Yixian was known to be invincible. A mere First-Order Great Emperor was nothing to him. Double space acceleration, Great Emperor intent. In the next moment, the bandit leader's body stiffened and he could not move. What? The bandit leader was shocked. He could feel that Yixian's Great Emperor intent was similar to his, but their strength was worlds apart. By the time he reacted, Yixian was already in front of him and said, "Where are the slaves you captured? Bastard, kill me if you have the guts." The bandit leader would rather die than comply. "Fine, I'll fulfill your wish." Yixian glared, and the pressure of double space acceleration began to increase. The bandit leader could only feel his head buzzing. It would not be long before his head was crushed. I'll talk. The bandit leader smelled the scent of death and quickly changed his mind. "Speak," Yixian shouted coldly. "There are 2 paths behind me. Just take the left one," the bandit leader said hurriedly. Yixian glanced at the bandit leader. There were indeed 2 paths behind the bandit leader. Yixian immediately swung his sword. "Sila!" The bandit leader's head flew. He thought that if he spoke, Yixian would not kill him. Yixian quickly removed the bandit leader's interspatial ring and rushed towards the left path. His speed was very fast, faster than a Third-Order Great Emperor. Not long after, he saw a prison. There was a group of people inside, about 40 to 50 of them. Jiang Tianjin. Yixian looked over and saw Jiang Tianjin's miserable figure. However, outside this prison, there were 2 bandit leaders guarding it. "Who's there?" The 2 bandit leaders noticed Yixian, but in the next moment, they were unable to move. Although this bandit group was not bad and had 2 Third-Order Great Emperors, there was only 1 Second-Order Great Emperor. He was one of Jiang Tianjin's opponents. The 2 bandit leaders guarding the prison were only First-Order Great Emperors. Yixian used all his strength to execute dual space and killed both of them. He quickly swept over and collected the 2's interspatial rings. He then turned around and glared. Pung! The prison's special lock exploded and the prison door opened. Then, the people inside came out one after another. However, they had special shackles on their bodies. If they were not opened, they were just a group of ordinary people with stronger physiques. Even an ordinary virtual god could kill them. "Little brother, are you here to save us? Little brother, quickly release us. Let's kill our way out. These damn bandits. We have more than 10 Void God Realm Great Emperors and a Third-Order Great Emperor. Let's kill them together." The group of people shouted. Yixian did not care about them. He quickly broke the shackles on Jiang Tianjin and the 2 Sword God Palace disciples and threw them 3 middle-grade Void God weapons. "Yixian, where's senior brother Wuxiang?" a Sword God Palace disciple asked. He lured the 2 Third-Order Great Emperors away. "I'm here to save you," Yixian said as he released the shackles on some of the people around him and threw them some middle-grade Void God weapons. When these people were captured, they were shackled and their interspatial rings were taken away. Hence, the weapons they had accumulated for many years were gone. However, compared to weapons, their lives were more important. Soon, these people were released from their shackles. At the same time, they had weapons. "Thank you, little brother, for saving our lives." Chapter 712. Let's go. The 2 third-stage Great Emperors will be back soon. Let's go. Yixian did not waste any time and led the group out of the cave. There were 2 second-stage Great Emperors and 10 first-stage Great Emperors in the group. If they worked together, they could go against a 3rd-stage Great Emperor. At this time, Jiang Tianjin approached with a smile and whispered, "Tisk TSK, are you interested in going with me?" Yixian asked vigilantly, "Where are we going?" He understood that the current Jiang Tianjin was the evil Jiang Tianjin. Otherwise, how could he reveal such a smile? "I heard from the desert bandits that there's a strange tree here. The tree bears fruit every year, and the fruit can increase one's cultivation," Jiang Tianjin said with a wicked smile. "Is that so?" Yixian narrowed his eyes. He did not believe Jiang Tianjin's nonsense. The evil Jiang Tianjin was harder to deal with than the cold Jiang Tianjin. Senior brother Wuxiang has already lured the 2/3 stage Great Emperors away. No one in the cave can stop us. Jiang Tianjin continued. Yixian paused and said to the 2-sword God Palace disciples behind him, "Two senior brothers, follow the group and kill our way out. Senior brother Jiang and I need to go somewhere." Then he told them a location where he would meet up with Wuxiang. Okay. The 2-sword God Palace disciples nodded. Then Yixian and Jiang Tianjin left the group. I don't know if Jiang Tianjin is telling the truth. However, we need to settle this today. Yixian thought to himself. Although Jiang Tianjin was a 3rd-stage Great Emperor, he had refined other Great Emperors to break through. He was weaker than Wuxiang and Wuxiang's opponent. He was only slightly stronger than a 2nd-stage Great Emperor. As for Yixian, he had defeated Jiang Wenyue when he was a 9th-grade king. Now that he had broken through to the empty God realm and obtained Great Emperor's will, he was not afraid of Jiang Tianjin. Most importantly, he had a killer move, the Sword of Annihilation reincarnation that he had learned after breaking through to the empty God realm. He had not used this move before, but its power was definitely stronger than the sword-shattering stars. Where's the strange tree you were talking about? Yixian could not help but ask as he stood far away from the crowd. It's at the end of the other path. Jiang Tianjin smiled evilly. All right, lead the way. Yixian nodded. Jiang Tianjin smiled again and led the way. Along the way, they did encounter some unlucky desert bandits. All of them were killed by Yixian, and their interspatial rings were taken away. Jiang Tianjin also took an interspatial ring to store things. It didn't take long for them to feel a powerful spiritual energy. There really was a supreme treasure in front of them. I didn't expect Jiang Tianjin to be telling the truth. Yixian muttered in his heart. He thought Jiang Tianjin was looking for a place to kill him. Who is it? Suddenly, a shout came from the corner in front of them. Then, a bandit leader walked out. 2nd stage Great Emperor kill. Jiang Tianjin shouted coldly as he glared at the bandit leader. Inextinguishable flames rose from the ground beneath the bandit leader's feet. The inextinguishable flames were infused with Jiang Tianjin's 3rd stage Great Emperor's will. However, the bandit leader was not someone to be trifled with. He quickly dodged. However, in the next moment, he felt 2 waves of pressure sealing off his path of retreat. Dying! Jiang Tianjin shot forward and sent the bandit leader flying with a slash. After all, he was a 3rd-stage Great Emperor. Even if he had refined the will of a fallen Great Emperor, he was still stronger than an ordinary 2nd-stage Great Emperor. After the bandit leader was sent flying, Yixian took care of him. Double space. 36 overlapping shadows. With the cooperation of the two, Yixian easily killed the bandit leader. Then, he quickly swept over and kept the bandit leader's interspatial ring. Jiang Tianjin looked at him quietly with a smile on his face. He did not say a word. This Jiang Tianjin. Yixian threw the interspatial ring aside and narrowed his eyes as he pondered. The current Jiang Tianjin was very strange. He did not want a single cent of the spoils of a 2nd-stage Great Emperor. After killing the bandit leader, Jiang Tianjin turned a corner and saw a red tree. What a strong flame aura. Jiang Tianjin's eyes narrowed. He instantly understood that this was a worldly treasure of the fire attribute. Coincidentally, he was also of the fire attribute. At this moment, Yixian had also swept over. Split equally. Jiang Tianjin shouted in a low voice and quickly flew over. There were more than 10 fruits on the red tree. Yixian did not delay and quickly swept over to pick them. Although this thing is useless to me, I can devour it. Yixian narrowed his eyes and swallowed the red fruit. His cultivation base increased by a level. He estimated that the value of these 2 fruits was almost equal to the value of the interspatial ring he had just obtained. Even if he had to split it equally with Jiang Tianjin, he would at least get 8 fruits. At that time, he would be able to break through to the 2nd-stage Great Emperor. However, Jiang Tianjin's gaze fell on Yixian. He revealed a sinister smile and suddenly attacked. Yixian, who was in the midst of collecting the red fruits, suddenly trembled and quickly retreated. Bang! The place where he had been standing just now suddenly exploded. Inextinguishable flames. Furthermore, it was the inextinguishable flames that had merged with the will of a great emperor. At this moment, only he and Jiang Tianjin were here. Therefore, the one who attacked him must be Jiang Tianjin. So you're finally showing your foxtail? Yi Xian said coldly. Yi Xian actually had this thought when Jiang Tianjin suggested it. When he took the second stage Great Emperor's interspatial ring, Jiang Tianjin did not say anything. This meant that he would most likely attack Yi Xian. Moreover, there were only the two of them here. It was the best time to attack. Yi Xian was prepared. Otherwise, Jiang Tianjin would have succeeded. Hee, how can I not take revenge for what you did to my father? Jiang Tianjin sneered. Revenge. Yi Xian almost laughed out loud. He said, speaking of revenge, have you forgotten what you did? Of course not. But without the stimulation, would you have grown to this stage today? Jiang Tianjin smiled sinisterly. Indeed not. Yi Xian shook his head. If not for Jiang Tianjin's stimulation, he would not have improved so quickly. Jiang Tianjin was the one who forced him to do so. What a coincidence. Let's settle our grudges today. Jiang Tianjin slowly walked down with a mid-rank, ethereal divine weapon that Yi Xian gave him. That's what I was thinking. Yi Xian took out the Wind Dragon Slash. He held the Wind Dragon Slash in his left hand and the 8 Desolate Sword in his right hand. This time, his opponent was a third-stage Great Emperor. Even if Jiang Tianjin was weaker than an ordinary third-stage Great Emperor, he was still stronger than a second-stage Great Emperor. Chapter 713. You better not show mercy. Otherwise, you'll die a horrible death, Jiang Tianjin reminded him. I won't be the one to die. Yi Xian shook his head. Both of them were very confident. Jiang Tianjin was 2 realms above Yi Xian, so he was confident in defeating Yi Xian. Yi Xian was the same. The two of them were silent for a few seconds, then moved at the same time. Dual space. Great Emperor intent. Yi Xian immediately used his special skill. After all, this was what he relied on to make a living. Fire clone. Jiang Tianjin also quickly condensed a fire clone made of inextinguishable flames behind Yi Xian, then attacked from both sides. Swish! Swish! 2 sword lights brushed past Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian's speed immediately exploded. Killing you won't be able to relieve my hatred. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and raised his hand. You're really hard to deal with. Jiang Tianjin smiled evilly and quickly covered the surroundings with inextinguishable flames to block Yi Xian's attack. Don't forget, his attribute countered Yi Xian's. Bam! 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 Jiang Tianjin defeated the 36 overlapped images that combined the Great Emperor intent and 64 layers of the Earth Pulse. However, Jiang Tianjin's original body was restricted by the dual space, his speed reduced by 40%. In a battle between experts, the gap between them could be seen in just 1 round. Yi Xian had both restrictions and attacks, while Jiang Tianjin only had powerful attacks. The weapon in his hand was also trash. Apart from the suppression of realms, he had no advantage at all. Rumble. After the first round, a loud sound suddenly came from outside. Both of them couldn't help but be startled. Seems like an accident happened. Let's deal with Jiang Tianjin first. Yi Xian thought about it and discovered that another fire clone had appeared near him. 2 fire clones. No, 3 of them. Kid, I know you want revenge, but Jiang Tianjin, would rather die than let you do it. So let's die together. Ever since Yi Xian had broken through to the Nihility God stage, Great Emperor stage, he knew that he would die at the hands of Yi Xian. Therefore, he was prepared to perish together with Yi Xian. Before Jiang Tianjin finished speaking, Yi Xian had already sensed the auras of the 3 flame clones growing stronger. He had seen this move before. Raging flames incinerate the heavens. Even Yi Xian wouldn't be able to withstand Jiang Tianjin's raging flames incinerate the heavens at the same time. Dual space. The will of the Great Emperor. 36 overlapping shadows. Yi Xian was multitasking, preparing to destroy all 3 fire avatars. However, The difference between his great Emperor Will and Jiang Tianjin's was too great. He couldn't destroy the second fire clone, and even the first fire clone didn't explode from the pressure of the dual space. He only managed to destroy the third fire clone. Boom! Suddenly, a powerful energy swept out from within the cave. The raging flames incinerate the heavens combined with the great Emperor Will was extremely powerful. With three stacked together, even a fourth-stage great Emperor would fall, not to mention these stone walls that were only used to support the sand. When the three raging flames incinerate the heavens were stacked together, the explosion could reach tens of thousands of meters, blowing up half of the bandits' lair. Hundreds of bandits were blown up, leaving nothing behind. The entire underground had become a vacuum, and the sand above had also been blown away. Not long after, the quicksand at the top surged in one after another. The mangrove tree and the fruit were also burned to a crisp by the inextinguishable flames. Jiang Tianjin had also disappeared without a trace. Cough, cough. Yi Xian, who was hit by the three raging flames incinerate the heavens, did not die on the spot. This was because he had merged the great Emperor Will into the 64 layers of pulsating guard in the dual space. While defending, he used the repulsive and wind forces to resist the attacks. Even so, he was still on the verge of death. This attack was even more powerful than the death sandstorm from before. Damn Jiang Tianjin. Yi Xian quickly sat up, allowing the bloodline of the divine tree of life to heal his injuries. Then, he prepared to chase after Jiang Tianjin. After using the raging flames incinerate the heavens 3 times, Jiang Tianjin's true qi had most likely been depleted. At this moment, Yi Xian was very regretful. If he had known this would happen, he would have plucked all the fruits on the mangrove tree. If he had broken through to the second stage Great Emperor realm, the third stage Great Emperor Jiang Tianjin would not be worth mentioning in front of him. Unfortunately, he had been careless. He felt that killing Jiang Tianjin in one blow was not enough to vent his hatred. That was why Jiang Tianjin had succeeded. It's about time. You want to run? Can you outrun me? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Just as he was about to use earth shrinking to chase after Jiang Tianjin, a figure suddenly flew out from behind him. Who is it? Yi Xian turned around and saw a man in battle armor. In the next moment, he felt that he could not move. Great Emperor Will. Even Jiang Tianjin could not use his Great Emperor Will to suppress Yi Xian, but this man in battle armor could. This meant that he was at least a 4th stage Great Emperor. This was because even Wuxia could not use his Great Emperor Will to suppress him. 4th stage Great Emperor? Why is there a 4th stage Great Emperor here? Yi Xian was shocked. He suddenly felt an ominous premonition. Brat, did you cause this commotion? The man in battle armor asked with narrowed eyes. No, Yi Xian subconsciously replied. Even if it's not you, it has something to do with you. How dare you destroy the red flame tree? You made me come here for nothing. The man in battle armor was somewhat angry. Coming here for nothing? This allowed Yi Xian to guess that this man in battle armor was not a desert bandit. Could it be that he's here to buy slaves? This thought suddenly appeared in Yi Xian's mind. The Sunflame Sacred Dynasty was very popular with slaves. Slaves who were caught would have a special method to carve the word "new" on their face. Even if the word was cut off and healed with medicine, the word would still be there. Forever a slave. Yi Xian couldn't help but shudder. If he was going to be a slave, he might as well be killed. Seeing that your talent is not bad, you might have some background. However, I like people with backgrounds like yours. The man in battle armor snorted coldly. He then threw a pair of shackles at Yi Xian. The shackles suddenly opened in midair and flew towards Yi Xian's feet. Seeing this, Yi Xian was scared half to death. These shackles were the thing that restricted his true qi and profound. However, he was currently immobilized by the Great Emperor Will. How could he dodge? Damn it, keep! Yi Xian cursed and kept the 8 desolate sword into the devouring space. He knew that if he was caught, his spatial ring would be taken away. The man in battle armor did not pay much attention to Yi Xian's actions. He directly controlled the shackles and locked them on Yi Xian's feet. This time, Yi Xian was in trouble. Damn it, I really can't use my true qi, profound, and great emperor will. Looking at the shackles on his feet, Yi Xian wanted to cry, but had no tears. He never thought that he would be caught. If he had known, he would have left immediately. Chapter 714. Yi Xian prayed in his heart. He wasn't praying for a miracle, but for the bloodline of the sacred tree of life to erase the word slave. Otherwise, how could he face his family and friends? The armored man withdrew his great emperor's will when he saw that his legs were shackled. Then, a middle-aged bandit rushed to the armored man's side. Lord Geo, this. The middle-aged bandit was at a loss for words. You can't take out the red blaze fruits that I ordered. Tell me, what should I do? The armored man asked coldly. Gulp. The middle-aged bandit swallowed his saliva and said, Lord Geo, this is none of our business. I don't care. You can't take out the red blaze fruits that I asked for. Do you want me to come here for nothing? The armored man's tone was threatening. The middle-aged bandit quickly changed his mind and said, Lord Geo, it's my fault. How about this? I'll give all the captives that I've captured recently to you and give you some treasures. I won't let you come here for nothing. What do you think? That's more like it. The armored man nodded slightly and looked at Yi Xian, saying, I'm the one who captured this brat. Bring him to me too. Yes. The middle-aged bandit quickly nodded. Then, he quickly rushed over and picked up Yi Xian like a chick and brought him away. Damn it, this is troublesome. Yi Xian cursed in his heart. The middle-aged bandit should be a third-stage great emperor in the desert bandit group, but he called the armored man lord. It seemed that the armored man was from the Sunflame sacred dynasty. Yi Xian was brought to a large open space by the middle-aged bandit. There were already many people waiting for Yi Xian. Little brother, why are you caught too? Sigh, I've dragged you into this. These people were the ones that Yi Xian had saved, but they were caught again. Yi Xian glanced around and saw that half of the people were gone. The 2 disciples of the Sword God Palace were also gone. A total of 18 people. The middle-aged bandit grinned and took off Yi Xian's interspatial ring. Then, he handed another one to the armored man. The man in armor took the universe ring and glanced at it. He nodded in satisfaction. Very good. Although I didn't get the red blaze fruit, I didn't waste my trip. He did not notice that the Bahuang sword he had seen earlier was not in Yi Xian's interspatial ring. This was because virtual divine weapons were not valuable. Only they could use virtual divine weapons that others had nurtured for decades. Thank you for your understanding, Master Jiao. The middle-aged bandit immediately smiled. All right, all of you follow me. If you dare to run, don't blame me for being merciless, said the armored man as he climbed up a flight of stairs. Even though he was a 4th-order great emperor, he still couldn't fly in the desert of death. Yi Xian and the others followed behind him in an orderly manner. The 18 of them were all shackled. Any desert bandit could kill all of them. There was no way to escape, so they could only accept their fate. Soon, they left the bandit lair. Master, where are we being taken to? Someone asked when they returned to the ground. They knew they were going to be taken, so they had to know where they were going to be taken to. The armored man shook his head. No, your faces won't be engraved with the word slave. I'm not treating you as slaves. We're not slaves? The 18 of them, including Yi Xian, couldn't help but light up when they heard this. You're not slaves. As for where it is, you'll know when you get there. The armored man suddenly smiled and said, Next, I'll release your shackles. All of you combined won't be a match for me, so know your limits. In order to speed up the journey, the armored man released the shackles on Yi Xian and the others and walked in front. Among the 18 of them, the strongest was a 2nd-order great emperor. However, such a cultivation realm was only a matter of thought in front of the armored man. Although Yi Xian wanted to use earth shrinking to escape, the armored man was right behind him. If he made any sudden movements, the armored man would instantly use his great emperor will to stop him. Therefore, the 18 of them could only follow the armored man's direction. Originally, a few of them wanted to commit suicide, but when they heard the armored man say that he wouldn't treat them as slaves, they gave up on the idea. Perhaps things would take a turn for the better? The 18 of them ran for 3 days under the armored man's supervision. This time, the journey was calm and peaceful. They didn't encounter any trouble. When they were about to leave the desert of death, the armored man called out to them and put the shackles on their legs again. Xian was disheartened. If he was a second-order great emperor, he would definitely fight to the death with the armored man. However, he hadn't broken through yet. In these 3 days, he cursed Jiang Tianjin countless times in his mind. He also prayed that Wuxia would appear and join forces with him to fight the armored man. However, Wuxia didn't appear. It was said that he was heavily injured. Let's wait and see. I don't believe that I won't have a chance to escape. Xian put the shackles on his legs again and followed the armored man out of the desert of death. The desert of death was in the Sunflame Sacred Dynasty. As it was a dangerous place, there weren't any cities around it. Fortunately, the armored man had a rock that was comparable to an empty God Realm Great Emperor. After Xian and the others sat on the rock, they flew for another 3 days and landed in front of a valley. Lord Gio, why are you here? When the great Peng landed, a man wearing battle armor walked over. Lord Chun, I'm sending some people to the heavenly prison this time. Lord Gio said. Haha, I see. Lord Chen smiled and glanced at Xian and the others. He said, you should be slaves, but Lord Gio is generous and sent you to the heavenly prison. Do you know where the heavenly prison is? The heavenly prison. When this word entered Xian's ears, he was completely confused. However, the others knew where the heavenly prison was. Isn't this the place where the Sunflame Sacred Dynasty imprisons key criminals? Someone blurted out. That's right. Those notorious criminals are imprisoned in the heavenly prison. However, the heavenly prison doesn't restrict your freedom completely. When you enter the heavenly prison, you can move freely in the heavenly prison. You can even kill people. Lord Chen nodded and threw some Qiankuan rings to Xian and the others. At the same time, he unshackled them. Chapter 7:15. Xian had already removed the restraints, but he could sense a few powerful auras. They were all at least 4th-rank great emperors, so he did not dare to act rashly. He followed Lord Chen's instructions and checked his Qiankuan ring. There was only one medium-grade void god weapon and a Qi observation manual. The heavenly prison was built by the supreme almighties of the Sunflame Sacred Dynasty and the Deyuan Sacred Dynasty. It's located in a secret realm. When you enter later, a red light will form above your head. As long as you kill the experts of the Deyuan Sacred Dynasty, you can plunder their light, Lord Chen explained. What's the use of this light? Someone asked. Light won't be of much use to you, but can make the Sunflame Sacred Dynasty more prosperous. There are some places in the heavenly prison where you can exchange your light for some things, such as high-grade void god weapons, martial arts, and various cultivation resources. You can even exchange the twin fruits, Lord Chen explained. When Xian heard the words twin fruits, his entire body trembled violently. Twin fruits? The twin fruits that can condense the second void god spirit? Oh my god, this item is nurtured by the heavens and earth. It's extremely rare. I didn't expect that it can be exchanged with light. You're too naive. The twin fruits are such a precious treasure. You'll need a large amount of light to exchange for it. Lord Chen smiled and said, That's right. The twin fruits are extremely rare. I don't think you can exchange for it. As soon as you enter the heavenly prison, your light will be red. Red is the lowest type of light. As long as you keep killing the people of the Deyuan Sacred Dynasty, you can plunder a portion of their light to strengthen the Sunflame Sacred Dynasty's light. This will ensure that the Sunflame Sacred Dynasty will never decline. Each generation will be stronger than the last. Simply put, it was using a large number of people's light to add to the country's light, allowing the country to prosper. It seems like there are many people in the heavenly prison. Someone mumbled, Yes, other than you, there are many people who are willing to enter the heavenly prison. As long as one of you can condense a green light, you can exchange for your freedom and leave the heavenly prison. Lord Chen nodded. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. Green light was a level 5 light. How many people present could condense it? Haha, don't think that you can't. There are 3 overlords in our Sunflame Sacred Dynasty. When he entered the heavenly prison, he was only a first emperor. Lord Chun said with a smile, "That's all I have to say. You can choose not to enter, but the consequence is that I will kill you on the spot. I have already given you the aura gazing art. This martial art allows you to see other people's luck. It is very easy to cultivate." After he finished speaking, he directly brought Yi Xian and the others to a stone wall. There was a metal door at the bottom of the stone wall. Master Chen walked over and used a special method to open the metal door. Behind the metal door, there was only the entrance to the mysterious realm and nothing else. Lord Sacred to Heaven, and Lord Sacred Realm. Lord Chen said, "Let me remind you one more thing. If you kill people with the same or lower light, you'll get less light. When you enter, you'll have red light. The greater the difference between your light and the enemies, the more light you will get. Also, you will not be able to get the light of the same faction. If the Sunflame Sacred Army finds you fighting with the same faction, you will be killed on the spot." Yi Xian and the others paused for a moment. They remembered Lord Chen's words. Right now, Yi Xian was already prepared to enter the heavenly prison. Who told him to accidentally get caught? Although the earth's shrinking profound meaning was powerful, there were many hidden experts aside from Lord Jiu and Lord Chun. If he acted rashly, he would be killed on the spot. Damn Jiang Tianjin. If I see you, I will skin you alive. Yi Xian cursed Jiang Tianjin in his heart. However, he admitted that he was careless. He did not expect Jiang Tianjin to be able to condense 3 fire clones. The fire element was the strongest. It was said that some experts could condense more than 10 fire clones. It was very difficult to deal with. However, he had to get through the heavenly prison first. I need a twin fruit. I didn't expect it to be available here. This time I must condense my clone, Yi Xian said in his heart. He then walked into the secret realm's entrance. In the next moment, he appeared in a valley. Newcomers? Let's go. The Great Yuan army often comes to rob the entrance. Before Yi Xian could size up his surroundings, a voice sounded out. The 18 of them turned around and saw a hole appear in the valley. A man came out of it. "Sir, can you tell us something about the heavenly prison?" A second stage Great Emperor asked. "There is nothing to say. Although we belong to the Sunflame Sacred Dynasty, we occasionally kill and steal. It's fine as long as we don't run into the Sunflame Sacred Army. I think all of you were captured and brought here. Otherwise, I would have killed all of you long ago." After the man finished speaking, he went back into the cave. Yi Xian and the others were captured. Therefore, they only had one medium-grade void god weapon in their interspatial ring. This man did not need to take the risk of being hunted down by the Sunflame Sacred Dynasty to kill Yi Xian and the others. Now, Yi Xian had entered the heavenly prison. This place was full of danger. Therefore, he did not hesitate and used Earth's shrink to enter the ground. "Little brother, let's work together." The second stage Great Emperor turned around and found that Yi Xian had disappeared. This kind of means was not something they could compare to. Even if Yi Xian was here, he would not work together with these people. What a joke. The weakest of these people was only an 8th grade king. The strongest was only a 2nd grade Great Emperor. He would not be a saint and protect these people. I still have the 8 Desolate Sword in my hand. If I can break through again, I will be able to fight against a 3rd grade Great Emperor. Yi Xian hid 500 meters underground. The man said that they could not fly more than 1,000 meters above ground. It seemed that there were some hidden dangers in the heavenly prison. However, this was good. His main attribute was Earth. As long as he did not fly too high, he was confident that he could knock his opponent to the ground. The ground was his home ground. Let me see the Qi observation technique first. Yi Xian took out the Qi observation technique from his interspatial ring and spent some Devourer crystals to learn it. Ding! Host has learned the Qi observation technique. Chapter 716. After learning the aura gazing technique, Yi Xian went back the way he came and glanced at the 17 people behind him. He used the aura gazing technique to check on them and found that they all had red clouds above their heads, which meant that they all had red luck. As for Yi Xian himself, when he raised his head, he could see that his luck was also red. I can't steal luck by killing people from the same camp. I can only do that by killing people from the Great Yuan Sacred Dynasty. The greater the difference in luck, the more luck I can steal. If I want to leave the heavenly prison, I have to hand in at least blue luck. I wonder how much luck I need to exchange for the twin fruits. Yixian thought about it and left. He was not familiar with the heavenly prison, so he had to understand it first. Lord Shan said that the Sunflame Sacred Dynasty's camp in the heavenly prison has 3 leaders and the Sunflame army. It seems that there are cities in the heavenly prison. However, even though this is the Sunflame Sacred Dynasty's territory, there are still cases of killing and stealing. Yixian reminded himself. Then, he rose to the ground and started running. He only had red luck and was a first-stage Great Emperor, so people from the same camp usually wouldn't take the risk to kill him. Someone's here? After running for 10 minutes, he saw a few people from the same camp. He had mastered the aura gazing technique and could tell if the luck belonged to the same camp or the Great Yuan Sacred Dynasty. In front of him was a white-haired old man roasting meat in front of a bonfire. "Young man, you just arrived?" The white-haired old man looked at Yixian with a smile. Yixian glanced at the red cloud above the white-haired old man and said, "Senior, can you tell me the direction of the nearest city?" The white-haired old man looked at Yixian and said, "Young man, don't be in such a hurry. Sit down and have a drink with me." "I'm sorry, Senior. I'm in a hurry. Please tell me, Senior." Yixian refused. "Forget it. You can find it yourself." The white-haired old man turned the meat around. Yixian narrowed his eyes. Since the first time he left Lianyan City to train, he had developed a habit of not trusting others easily. Although the white-haired old man's luck was red, he could hide his aura. Even Yixian couldn't see through him, so his strength was probably not to be underestimated. Just as Yixian was thinking, he suddenly felt a strong pressure that made him unable to move. "Young man, if I want to kill you, I can kill you." The white-haired old man narrowed his eyes. Yixian was about to cry his eyes out. Recently, his luck had been very bad. First, he was caught and thrown into the heavenly prison. Now, he met another expert. Or not. Or maybe even the 5th stage Great Emperor. Or even the... "All right," Yixian hurriedly replied. In the next moment, he felt the pressure on his body disappear, and he could move. "Sit down and have a drink." The white-haired old man smiled and took out a wine cup. He filled it to the brim. Yixian walked over and sat in front of the old man. He took the wine cup. This wine." Yixian raised his eyebrows and drank it in one gulp. "Special Devourer." "Damn, what wine is this? 1 cup is more precious than the 2 red blaze fruits?" Yixian was shocked. He also felt that his physique had changed. He became stronger. "This is the flame dragon wine that this old man personally brewed. It can strengthen the physique. However, this old man drank too much. It has no effect on me now." The white-haired old man replied. "Many thanks, Senior." Yixian quickly cupped his fists. He estimated that he could break through to the 2nd stage Great Emperor if he drank another 2 or 3 cups. "Don't thank me. This flame dragon wine is not for nothing. I want you to answer a question." The white-haired old man narrowed his eyes and said, "What is it?" Yixian asked subconsciously. This was his first time meeting this white-haired old man. He didn't know what the old man would ask. Could it be something that happened outside the Heaven's prison? "The martial art you used just now is called Wind Strike, right?" The white-haired old man said. This question stunned Yixian. However, it seemed that many people recognized this martial art. Hence, he didn't hide it and nodded. "All right, a cup of wine for a question. Little brother, do you still want a drink?" The white-haired old man poured another cup of flame dragon wine. "Drink." Yixian nodded immediately. What a joke. This was a free gift. He could break through to the 2nd stage Great Emperor after a few more cups. He took the cup and swallowed the flame dragon wine. "Second question, where did you learn Wind Strike?" The white-haired old man asked. "Zephyr Thunder Palace." Yixian answered subconsciously. He had already searched the Zephyr Thunder Palace once. There was nothing there. Furthermore, he was imprisoned in the Heaven's prison and had his yin and yang ring taken away. Hence, the white-haired old man was only after his martial art. Is it the Zephyr Thunder Palace in the chaotic astral ocean? The white-haired old man handed over another cup of flame dragon wine. Yixian was stunned. Only he and Guan Yulan knew about this. Why did this white-haired old man know about it too? That's right. Yixian nodded and finished the flame dragon wine. He only needed one more cup to break through to the second stage, Great Emperor realm. Then, other than those things, do you have anything else? For example, a corpse and a key? The white-haired old man poured another cup of flame dragon wine and handed it to Yixian. Yixian trembled and said in shock, "A corpse and a key?" The white-haired old man looked into his eyes and sighed. "Even the Zephyr Thunder Palace doesn't have anything." Yixian raised his eyebrows and drank the cup of flame dragon wine on the spot. Ding! Host has broken through. Host is now a second stage Great Emperor. The system notification sounded. The white-haired old man's eyes flickered and said in surprise, "Kid, you're amazing. The flame dragon wine can strengthen one's physique. You actually broke through after drinking 4 cups. Senior's eyes are really sharp." Yixian quickly flattered and asked, "Senior, in the Zephyr Thunder Palace, I also obtained the Wind Dragon Slash and the Profundity Seed, but I didn't see any key. This key is, the Zephyr Thunder Emperor was famous in the Sun Flame Holy Dynasty 1,000 years ago. He plundered a lot of wealth with his martial skills and profundities before disappearing. Among the wealth he plundered, there was a key that could open a ruin. Before he died, he spread the news that he had built many Zephyr Thunder Palaces, and one of them stored his corpse and the key to the ruin." The white-haired old man replied, "Ruin key? Corpse?" Yixian raised his eyebrows. Indeed, he didn't find the Zephyr Thunder Emperor's corpse in the lightning forbidden land, nor did he find any key. Chapter 717. Senior, since you know where the Zephyr Thunder Palace is, why? Yixian couldn't help but ask, "Why don't you take it away? It's simple. Empty God Realm Emperors can't enter the Thunder Island. If a grade 9 king enters, he will be struck to death by the riot astral lightning. There are many traps set by the Zephyr Thunder Emperor. Other than the riot astral lightning, there are many other dangers. If the strength of the person who enters exceeds the range set by the Zephyr Thunder Emperor, the Zephyr Thunder Palace will be destroyed. You're lucky to be able to obtain his inheritance." The white-haired elder explained. After Yixian heard this, he was also shocked. He didn't feel any danger other than the riot astral lightning. Now that the white-haired elder mentioned it, he shuddered. Even the place where he obtained his inheritance doesn't have his corpse. Where'd his corpse be? The elder mumbled. He thought that the key to the ruin would be beside the Zephyr Thunder Emperor's corpse. How many Zephyr Thunder Palaces have been found? Yixian couldn't help but ask. The Zephyr Thunder Emperor gave out a total of 6 locations of the Zephyr Thunder Palaces. 3 of them are kept secret. Even so, after so many years of searching,